Peanuts! Peanuts!
Good morning, Turn this down, man. Wow, that's loud. It's loud in my headphones.
It looks okay to me.
I couldn't hear myself over the music.
Okay. It looked okay.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Batter Round. I'm your host, Paul Valley. This is my co-host and executive producer, Zach
Apparently,
Goodman.
I'm a terrible producer because I've been doing this for how long now, and I still have
that
too
music
loud.
was extraordinarily
terrible,
too loud. Extraordinary.
Unbelievable.
Guys, so I had a dream last night that...
You love Bruce Springsteen? I know.
No, God. Apparently...
That was a fun little argument we had this week.
Yeah, dude, you were the only one that came after me.
I'm just correct.
So somebody told me
there was another guy I saw in your replies who really came out.
It was a woman. It was a woman, and she said, Bruce Springsteen is a wonderful musician and a wonderful human being who does everything to help others. If you don't like him, you don't need to dump on him. Just move on. I didn't dump on the guy.
I didn't say that.
I didn't dump. All I said was I don't get the obsession. He has songs that I like. There are songs that Bruce Springsteen has that I enjoy. I didn't say he was crap. I just don't get why people think that he is like the grandest musician that's ever lived.
Because he is.
But he's not.
He is.
But he's not.
We'll table this discussion.
Anyway, so I had this dream last night that I started this show by saying, good morning, it is a beautiful Saturday. Guys, it is not a beautiful Saturday. Today sucks. All right. The sun is starting to poke its head out a little bit here. I'm starting to see a little bit of blue skies. It's like 20 degrees outside. It snowed last night, and then wind and ice and all that. So it was treacherous getting in here today. Today sucks. Winter sucks. This is like the longest, most drawn-out winter that I can remember in a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like last winter we had a few warmer days where it was, up in like the 40s, 50s, which is fine in the winter. But right now it's like
it's
teens
consistently
every
been
day.
in the 20s.
Yeah, it's been brutal.
For a good bit now.
I'm getting over it at this point.
No,
I'm a cold weather guy, but I'm over it.
Ask me next January if that's the longest winter, because I probably feel this way every year.
I don't remember you saying that last year, though.
But no, this winter has been, it's just this month, the month of January, and maybe it's because there's literally no baseball. There's nothing to talk about. Even with the CBA stuff, they met twice. Both sides made some concessions, but that doesn't mean that they're close to getting a deal done. We're hoping. We saw the Orioles have their moving day, their truck day, whatever that's called. Is that what it's called? Trucking day or whatever?
We'll call it that.
Yeah, whatever that day is. We saw that they had that this week where they moved all their stuff down to Sarasota for their minor leaguers. And something I forgot, DL Hall's on the 40-man roster.
Right.
So he can't play in the minor leagues. He can't play in the minor leagues until a new CBA is reached.
Yep.
So we're looking at there's not a lot going on. There's not a lot going on with baseball, and so it's maybe making the winter months. Because usually right now you're getting spring training fever, but it's hard to get spring training fever when you don't know if it's coming.
Right. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, we don't know if it's going to get off in the end of February, which is usually when it starts, and it's a big question mark at this point. What's going to happen across all levels of baseball? We know the minor leagues will get off to a start eventually, and the Orioles are doing mini camps right now down in Sarasota. Go to Eric Garfield's Twitter if you want to see a bunch of videos of that. He's got tons of videos of Colton Cowser and Heston Kjerstad and all those guys down there. And it's generally the guys who aren't on the 40-man roster. It's the Gunnar Hendersons of the world. But most of the good prospects that are not named DL Hall are down there at the moment. So it's great to see, and a lot of these guys are look like they're in really good shape and hitting a lot of bombs, making some good contact from what I've seen from the videos. That's positive, and that's really the only baseball we have at the moment. We know Brandon Hyde is running that camp. I believe I saw Cousins there. Some other guys I think are at that camp. Some of the major league coaches.
You know what Tim Cousins looks like?
Yes, yeah.
I don't know what he looks like.
He's in the dugout all the time, so he's a bearded guy. He's kind of big. He looks a little bit like Brandon Hyde, but like a shorter version.
Chris Holt is a bearded guy.
He also is. Yeah, he also is. Tim Cousins is a little bit older though than Chris Holt. But yeah, they all kind of look a little bit alike. All the new Orioles
with
coaching
those big
staff.
meat hooks that they got for arms.
And so that's kind of the only baseball we have right now is these mini camps going on in Sarasota. But at least that's something, and at least the prospects like Colton Cowser and Heston Kjerstad can kind of get themselves into shape, because we know they're not on the 40-man roster, and they will be playing minor league baseball in a few months. So that's positive, I guess.
And I just want to remind everybody that the Bat Around today is brought to you by Live Casino. Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosk. I believe they have 51 of them now. And watch all the action from the best seat in the house. And reserve your spot to watch the big game in the FanDuel Sportsbook right now by emailing events@sportssocialmd.com. That's events@sportssocialmd.com. So I saw those videos that Eric Garfield put out.
Yep.
And they're quite good. They're quite entertaining.
Yeah.
But we have to take them with a grain of salt.
Well, sure.
Because it's batting practice.
Right.
It's batting practice.
Right. And machines. And that's...
Yeah, and you can... Anybody... Jeff Rebelate would go out there and put it on display during batting practice. Because to get to this level, you have to be able to do certain things on a baseball field. So all these guys in batting practice can do that. Now, show me against live pitching. If you show me Heston Kjerstad hitting 430-foot bombs, or who's the other? T.T. Bowens. Is that what his name is?
T.T. Bowens,
Yeah, T.T. Bowens.
J.D. Mundy's down there as well.
Yeah, I saw all these guys raking. If they're doing that against live pitching, that's when I'll get excited. Now, look, it's fun to see, and I'm not a glass half empty kind of guy when it comes to baseball.
It's something. There's that,
but it's something.
Yeah.
It certainly is something. Now, we were talking about the CBA negotiations. They met last Monday. The players came in with concessions. They came in and they dropped their argument to have free agency by the time you reach a certain age, which Trey Mancini, for example, would be a free agent by now if that were to be put into effect. But they dropped that ask. Major League Baseball came back and dropped their ask for what did they do?
I know what the players dropped. I didn't read too much into what Major League Baseball dropped.
Oh, they dropped their proposal of taking away the salary arbitration from players who have gotten there. So like they wanted to, once you get to arbitration, they wanted to pay you based on your output rather than what the arbitration would say, and they dropped that ask.
That was the one where they were going to judge it by Fangraphs WAR.
Yeah, they dropped that ask.
That wasn't even a heavily publicized one. That wasn't one of the ones.
It was a big sticking point, apparently.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, apparently.
I feel
so they made the concession there. So both sides are starting to make concessions. They're starting to show a little bit of willingness to have wiggle room. Another thing that they're on the same page with, sort of, is the bonus money for pre-arbitration players. The Players Union wants $105 million in bonus money, so they basically want to have $775,000 as a starting minimum salary. The Major League Baseball came back with $10 million in bonus pool money, so 1/10 of that. And what they want to do is they want to pay from 0 to 1 year. They want to pay you $615,000 rather than the $600,000 that's set at right now.
Yep.
Then if you're in years 1 to 2, you get paid $650,000, and if you're in year 3, you get paid $700,000. Which even in year 3 is still falling $75,000 short of what the Players Union wants. But the thing here is that they're on the same page. Both sides agree that there should be bonus pool money for pre-arbitration players, and that the league minimum should go up.
Which is good.
However, also what Major League Baseball wants is no wiggle room on those salaries. So if you're getting paid $615,000, your team can't pay you more than that in your first year of pre-arbitration. Whereas by the old CBA's rules, if it was a $575,000 league minimum and your team wanted to show you some good faith and give you $650K, they could do that. Now, what MLB is proposing is you can't do that. The number is what the number is. This is what you're getting paid universally. So they're both on the same page. So it looks like this is something that's going to be in the new collective bargaining agreement, where there's going to be some bonus pool money and the league minimum is going to go up. They just have to find some common ground, because right now they're $95 million apart in that bonus pool. So they're going to have to find some place in the middle. Honestly, I don't even know if they're going to find a place in the middle. When it comes to spending money, the owners don't really give a lot of leeway, right? So it looks to me like I wouldn't be surprised to see the owners win out on the number here, but the players get something of what they want.
Yeah, I think the players are going to, and I've been saying this for a while, that the players are going to be the ones that have to make the concessions, because they're going to be the ones that are going to want to play in spring training in these next few months. And I feel like that these guys are going to start wanting their paychecks, and they're going to start wanting to play baseball again. And that's, the biggest thing is, you can work out at home. You can do all the stuff you want. You can take as many swings off a machine. But the reality is that a lot of these guys want to face live arms. They want to face real pitching. And it's going to come to a point eventually where the players are going to say, okay, we need to be back to baseball. Let's just give them a little bit of what they want. And that's what you are already seeing, happening right here. I mean, you're already seeing these guys saying, okay, maybe we're not going to get everything we want. Let's give the Major League Baseball a little bit of what they want, make some concessions here, and kind of, I guess, come to a little bit of a compromise. I wouldn't really call it that because the players are almost more giving in, but I think they're going to be the ones in the end who will have to give up the most stuff. And Major League Baseball will have to give up some things too. That's how compromises work. But unfortunately, they're still far apart on so many issues that I don't really see too many compromises coming in this next 2 weeks or so. But it's more going to be, concessions as opposed to compromises.
Yeah, and the thing is, like you alluded to, in these situations when you have these arguments over this sort of thing, the players lose out every time, and you wonder if they're digging their feet in the sand and saying, "Hey," or drawing a line in the sand, and saying, "We want what we want."
Right.
We're not going to lose this time because Tony Clark, for all intents and purposes, got taken to the cleaners with the last CBA, and he was new to it, so there was probably some learning curves he had to go through and some growing pains, and he didn't really know what was going on. This time around, he doesn't want to let that happen. Ultimately, we're going to have baseball.
Yeah,
we're going to have a spring training. It may be shortened. I don't think we're going to miss regular season games. Knock on wood. I mean, I say that, but then a month and a half from now, maybe there's still no deal, and now we're sitting there like, what is happening? Yeah.
So I will say one thing. We said last week that March 1st kind of sticks out in both of our heads as a possible date for this thing to get, I guess, ratified would be the word. But what I would actually say right now is that after them coming to meet 2 times this week and the concessions that were made, I think we should move that up. I think it's going to be February. I think it's going to be maybe like the middle of the month. We'll say February 15th, 16th. Something like that, I think, is going to be the date where they end up making a full compromise and getting the CBA underway.
February 18th, is that what you said?
No, I said like 15th, 16th, somewhere around there, like the middle of the month. Because spring training, I believe the Orioles' first game is the 22nd or the 25th. I could be wrong. It's somewhere in that.
It's usually like the 23rd.
Yeah.
It's usually right around there.
Somewhere around there. And I think that they'll, just come up to that brink of spring training, and just before it, they'll get it done. I think and it'll be about a week before if it's on the 22nd. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and if anybody has seen on Twitter, the one guy who says, I have sources within the Yankees who said that the deal is basically done and the lawyers are just dragging it out. Don't pay attention to that.
If they're not verified on Twitter,
the guy was verified, but
was he?
There's plenty of Dan Clark is verified on Twitter.
Right.
There's plenty of people that are verified on Twitter. That, like the one person who said that Carlos Correa was a done deal to the Tigers, he was verified because he's a podcaster with a big following.
Right.
But it's not a thing.
Don't believe everything.
I also saw. Maybe I'm the only one who saw this. Weeks ago, MLB Trade Rumors, and maybe it was like 2 weeks ago, tweeted out Mariners to sign Carlos Correa to minor league deal. MLB Trade Rumors tweeted that out. I was like, what is this? And then the next tweet under it said, this is just a sign that baseball needs to get its act together and come to an agreement. And then both tweets were deleted.
So it was like a joke. Someone playing.
That is maybe somebody.
It's a bad joke.
Maybe somebody went AWOL. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was from MLB Trade Rumors. So it was. And it got deleted. Unless it was one of those mock things where everything looked the same, but like one letter was wrong, and I just missed that.
Probably what it was.
But the tweets were deleted. So you can't see them anymore. But I definitely saw that. And so anyway, the whole point of me telling that story is there's a lot of stuff that people put out there, like the Ravens are going to try to trade Lamar Jackson.
Yeah,
and it's all hogwash.
Yeah,
it's all garbage. It's not true. When it's true,
because people have nothing else to talk about.
Right,
that's really what it is.
Right, when it's true, we'll tell you about it on this show. Not that we're the insiders and get all the information from everybody else, but
we know what to believe. We know what to believe,
and there'll be other reports that we can report on when we're on this show.
If Jeff Passan says it, I'll believe it.
Yeah,
right. I mean, that guy is more involved with this negotiation than basically anybody except the people who work for the Major League Baseball Players Association and Major League Baseball. It's simple as that.
Or Ken Rosenthal.
Rosenthal.
In my head, I literally thought Ken Roethlisberger.
Ken Roethlisberger. Well,
Ben Roethlisberger officially announced his retirement. So there goes my
and Tom Brady planning to this week apparently.
Tom Brady's going to retire this week.
One of the verified accounts, and I will send the tweet over to you right now, said Tom Brady's retiring this week. It was, I believe, Pro Football Focus, maybe? I can't remember exactly what it was. I'll send you that right now.
Tom Brady. See, we talked about this all week. Not all week, but
Pro Football Talk.
At different points this week, we talked about it where Glenn and Drew Forrester of Drew's Morning Dish believe that Tom Brady's going to play football till he's either 50 or wins 10 Super Bowls.
I mean, that's kind of what I was under the impression of, that he was going to play till he was like 50 years old. But it seems like, and Pro Football Talk is actually ran by Mike Florio, who is a real. He's on NFL Network a lot. He's an NFL insider.
He's not taken as seriously as other people.
He's still legit though.
But he is known and he is legit.
Yeah.
And he's like on TV and stuff.
Yeah.
But and that's funny. And I know this is a baseball show, so we won't spend too much time on it. But the thing about Tom Brady, he led the league in passing yards and touchdowns this year at 44 years old.
Yep.
So I can totally understand him saying, I'm going out not on top because he's not going out a Super Bowl champion, but he's going out at the top of his game.
Yep.
He's going out at the top of his game.
I mean, if you look at Peyton Manning's last year, it was kind of an embarrassment.
Yeah. But it's like David Ortiz, who we're going to talk about here a little bit, who in his final year was an all-star. I think he won a Silver Slugger.
He hit like 300.
He had like 318 his final year. He had close to 30 homers, 100 RBIs. In his final year, and then he retired. And with Tom Brady, he talked about his family, and he said at a certain point, it's not just about me; it's about what my family wants. And my kids are getting older, and I want to spend time with them. And he can go out at the top of his game. If Tom Brady retires, like, I'm glad we don't have to, but we haven't had to deal with him in Baltimore for a couple of years now.
Haven't played him in 2 years.
Yeah, it's you're watching the end of the career of arguably the greatest of all time. Talent-wise, I don't think he was the greatest quarterback of all time, but he was the best winner. He was the best winner.
He's the and again, we'll get to David Ortiz here in a second, but he is the most winningest quarterback of all time. Obviously, he's the most winningest player. I get that's the right word for it.
Yeah,
I guess.
winningest.
Player of all time, and he's one of the best competitors of all time. Definitely not the most talented. I think that would probably have to go to, honestly, Patrick Mahomes at this point. I think he's the most talented overall. But Tom Brady is an incredible. I've gained a lot of respect for him in the past few years.
I have too. And it's probably because he's not in New England.
But that's part of it.
Look, we've spent enough time talking about Tom Brady because this is a baseball show. Another thing that happened, real quick, Buck, you know what? Let's talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Famously, David Ortiz was the only member elected to the Hall of Fame this year. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and Sammy Sosa fall off the ballot in their after their 10th and final year on the ballot. All three of them came up short. Bonds came up. I think he got
he had like 61% or 66%.
It was 66%. He needed 30 more votes to get in, or 36 more votes, something like that. And it's a travesty. It's a travesty. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm the biggest Barry Bonds fan. I will tell you that I think that in the history of the game, you will be hard pressed to find 5 players better than Barry Bonds.
Oh, you can't.
You'll be very hard pressed to find it.
I honestly, I would say Willie Mays is the greatest baseball player of all time. That's my opinion. I think Barry Bonds is 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's for me. Bonds is up there. Griffey's up there.
Yep.
Mays is up there. Ted Williams.
Yep.
Babe Ruth. Guys like that.
Yeah.
But and Babe Ruth, he did in so many different ways.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
But Barry Bonds was the, I don't want to take away from Orioles banter, but Barry Bonds was the epitome of a 5-tool player.
Yes.
David Ortiz was a 1-tool player. And that tool was very good. That tool still wasn't as good as the same tool for Barry Bonds, but it was very good. And this isn't to say that David Ortiz shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't, and I saw this and somebody said it perfectly, you can't have a museum of baseball and not have Barry Bonds a prominent figure in that museum.
Well, the thing about it is that the Hall of Fame is to recognize the greatest players of all time, no matter what, right?
Mm-hmm.
Barry Bonds is a top 3 greatest player of all time. He has more home runs than anyone else. By far.
More MVPs than anybody else.
More MVPs than anyone else. He's
more
a
walks
guy,
than anybody
more
else.
walks,
Highest
more
on base percentage.
I think he's most intentional walks
most
as well.
intentional walks.
The OPS is, I think, one of the highest of all time.
We are stealing thunder from another segment in this
Fair
show.
enough.
So we're going to talk more. We're going to get really in depth about this because I have a very strong opinion on this. And this is coming from a guy who's argued many times that Griffey was better than Bonds in my younger years.
I would disagree with you.
Yeah, well, that like I said.
Okay, we'll save it.
In my younger years. Orioles news, Buck Britton has been named the Norfolk Tides manager. He keeps moving up the system. People think that this is a sign that the Orioles are maybe looking at Buck Britton as their next manager. Little bit hard to say that when your current manager is still here and under contract.
And just got an extension.
And the extension
Not
was
for long, but
for this season.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that more in Orioles Banter because I have opinions about that as well. But it's a good thing for Buck Britton. When we saw that he wasn't coming back to Bowie, you kind of were like, why aren't you bringing Buck Britton back to Bowie? And then you see that he's becoming the manager of the Norfolk Tides. He is very respected in the organization. The players seem to love him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, famously the brother of Zach Britton.
Yeah.
He was an Orioles minor leaguer, but never really got to that same level. But this is exciting for Buck Britton, and it should be exciting for Orioles fans because this is a guy that the Orioles seem to really like, and they seem to be kind of pushing him along. And maybe he does find himself a role. Somebody told me, or I saw somewhere, maybe heard on the radio, that Buck Britton also coaches third base while he manages. And somebody asked him, why do you coach third base? He said, well, it's the quickest way to the majors. And the person, not knowing what to say, said, so is that where you want to get? You want to get to the majors? And Buck kind of looked at him like,
who doesn't?
yeah. It was on Twitter because they posted a meme of what Buck Britton's response was. But so good for Buck Britton, good for the Orioles. Again, we're going to talk about all this at length later on in the program. We do have a good show coming up for you in just a matter of moments. We're going to have Stan the Fan Charles on the line. From Baseball America, Kyle Glaser joins the show at 11 o'clock. Zach's going to sound off on on something that I'm maybe on the same page with him on, but not on exactly on the same page.
Okay.
Then again, we're going to get to Orioles banter. And then I have a whopper of a trivia question for Zach to end the program today. Zach, why don't you go ahead and give Stan a call while I pay some bills here.
Sounds good.
All right. The latest issue of Press Box is available now, and it's our very special annual Best of issue. On the cover, we celebrate Justin Tucker as our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, honoring his historic on-field achievements, but also the unprecedented relationship he shared with Baltimore. Also inside, we recognize the top people, performances and moments of 2021, including Cedric Mullins' incredible season and the dominance of local Paralympic athletes. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com. Joining us now, we're going to talk a little bit more about Buck Britton, some Hall of Fame, and some other things going on in the world of baseball. He's back for his weekly segment. He is Stan the Fan. Charles, Stan, thanks for taking some time for us this morning. How are you today?
Always a pleasure for you and Zach.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's always a pleasure for us to talk with you,
How
Stan.
did you, I just thought of something this morning when I got up from my morning trip to the bathroom. I said, I can't wait to talk to Paul and Zach. Then I said, I wonder how the two of them met. How did you guys meet?
So, Zach does a podcast.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Called
Right.
Nate Hit the Foul Pole, and I knew Matt Pine because we both did stuff for Utah Street Report. And I originally asked Matt Pine to be my co-host on the show, and it was during the pandemic, and he couldn't do it. So he recommended Zach, and the rest is history.
Okay.
All right, so, Stan, Major League Baseball and the Players Union, they met Monday and Tuesday. Both sides made concessions, which is a good sign. They're showing a little bit of wiggle room here. Not great concessions. Major League Baseball, the Players Association, dropped their ask for reaching free agency by a certain age, by 29 and a half and 30 and a half. They dropped that ask. Whereas the Major League Baseball dropped their ask of having arbitration-eligible players not go through the arbitration process, but rather be paid based on merit. We know that these aren't huge concessions, but it is something. How encouraging is it to see both sides starting to wiggle here?
it's encouraging. I can't lie to you. You know, the fact that they sat across from one another and didn't walk out in 7 minutes. But you know, the next couple times they get together, they've really got to start to make some movement on this. You know, I mean, what are we, about 13 days away from when pitchers and catchers are supposed to report?
Yeah, about 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say it's nice to see that they could sit across and not walk out on one another in 7 minutes, but they need to make some actual progress. You know.
Yeah, I firmly agree with you. And one of the things that they seem to be on the same page with is bonus pool money for pre-arbitration eligible players. However, the players' union is asking for $105 million to be spread out for those pre-arb players. The owners group is basically offering $10 million, so about a tenth of that.
And that $10 million is where the initial $15,000 increase in per player minimum salary would come from, out of that $10 million.
Yeah, and so it wouldn't be just 15. It would be 15 for players in their first year. Then it would be
year, right.
$650K if you're in year 2 and $700K if you're in year 3.
Right.
But the way that it works out right now, in the old,
when you say year, you're saying it would start out moving the minimum salary to $650, right?
No, $615.
$615.
$615
right.
If you're in your first year of pre-arbitration eligibility.
Right.
If you're in your second year, it's $650, and if you're in your third year, it's $700. But the players' union wants them to start the minimum salary at $775K.
Yeah.
You know,
I have to be honest with you. The 15,000 increase in year 1 is really insulting. You know?
I agree. That was
I don't
my
know
reaction.
exactly. I don't know exactly the language where they're coming up with that money. Now I understand it's coming from this pot, but that should go up $100,000. You know, that checklist, that should be hit number 1 is, hey, you guys want $750, we're going to up this to $650 this year. You know.
Yeah.
And $700 year 2 and $750 year 3 or something like that. You know.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Well, another thing that we have to understand here is that neither side came with their best offer in that initial go-around. This is lowballing, and then and on the players' union's case, highballing, and then hopefully they'll find a way to meet somewhere in the middle and get it to about what you were saying.
I would think that was one area they could have already met in the middle and really gotten some traction on this. You know, the amount of money is not that significant.
Agreed, especially when you're talking about billionaires that are paying these salaries. Now, here's the other thing. What in this proposal, in the $10 million bonus pool proposal from the owners group, they're basically saying that's the number. If you are supposed
you couldn't negotiate a better number for your player.
Right. Whereas in the old CBA, the writing was, if your player was making $575, but you wanted to show a sign of good faith and give him $625.
$625, you could do that.
You could do that, and maybe that'll be what happens. Maybe the players' union will agree to that. But so far, it's a sticking point that they're both on the same page that there should be bonus pool money, but they got to find some.
Hey, why does that language need to be in there that you can't pay the player more? They very rarely do it anyway. It must affect like 2 players a year or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it really looks like they're going out of their way to create friction, you know, rather than be smoothing things over.
Yeah, it's a pissing contest, Stan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah.
But so for you, ultimately, where do you see the common ground being? Do you think they meet somewhere in the middle? I'm inclined to think that maybe the owners win out in that they get a lower number than the players initially would have gone for, but the players still feel like they got something because they got the agreement to raise up the minimum salary. I would, in my mind, something like $35 million pool is what's standing out in my mind. Where do you see this falling?
I guess they'll find some common ground here, you know. But you would have thought on this issue that they could have already met the common ground.
Yeah, you would think. It seems like
one of those things. It looks like they're going it looks like the owner's side is going out of their way to continue to have some type of friction over virtually nothing.
Yeah, now potential friction within the Orioles in the future. Buck Britton was just named manager of the Norfolk Tides, and he's been moving his way through this system for quite a while now. He seems to be very highly respected by the Orioles, by the players that play for him. Like I said in my notes, the Orioles have to hold him in high regard. Some believe that he's being groomed to be Brandon Hyde's replacement. I think it's a little difficult to say that while Brandon Hyde is still under contract, and I don't know that the Orioles, maybe internally they have it in the back of their mind, but I don't know if they're operating with the idea that no matter what, Brandon Hyde's not here after this year. Do you feel like they're maybe grooming Buck Britton and using him as a contingency clause in case it's another bad year for the Orioles, which it could be, but maybe not a 100-loss season? In other words,
I wouldn't project anything by the fact that he's moved up. I think he's a good soldier to what Mike and Sig and Matt Blood try and accomplish at the minor league level. I would not yet mark him as the guy that would replace Brandon Hyde if Hyde is not around. I would think at some point they've got to start to put their best foot forward, and I'm not sure that Buck Britton will be their best foot forward if they do make a managerial move.
So, Stan, are you under the assumption they will move to, if they do move on from Brandon Hyde, move to a veteran manager, someone who's been in the game for a long time?
I would think that they would move toward a veteran manager.
Could it be someone?
I don't think Mike Elias can if he thinks that the talent that he's giving the manager is better and there should be better results based on what they're giving the manager, he's going to be, it's not like he has an unlimited, an unlimited landing strip. At some point he's got to start to put up results, and I don't know that they're going to think that Buck Britton is the best chance to wrangle some more wins.
So Stan,
that's at least the way I see it now.
And I'm inclined to believe with you. I'm also inclined to believe that the Orioles have to give him the talent on the field to put up those results. And it seems like this year they're kind of starting to somewhat put that together. You're going to see Adley Rutschman, Mountcastle's back, Hayes, Mullins. You know the names. But we look at it, and I've always thought to myself.
But I still see a pitching staff, a starting pitching staff that is not capable of giving the team a chance to win.
Oh, I agree with you.
4 out of 5 days or something like that. Until you give a manager that, what do you ask him to pull out a rabbit out of his ass?
Right.
I mean, it's really quite. I feel for Brandon. This has really been a rough 3-year stretch for him, and I would have hoped that he'd be getting a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt. And I think at a certain point, people in the position of Mike and Sig, they got to start pointing. They have to start to point some fingers at a different area, and I don't see hiring Buck Britton as sort of over Brandon Hyde as any kind of strong enough move that they're ready to win.
Right, and speaking of Brandon Hyde, there's been some things that have been happening that make me think that maybe they're going to give him an opportunity this year to have a little bit more talent based on what they're doing with the outfield wall and trying to make them more competitive in the pitching department. They went out and they signed Jordan Lyles. Brandon Hyde doesn't have a commitment from this team beyond this coming season. That extension was just through this 2022 season. So he's managing with not a lot of security.
Yeah.
I have to imagine that they can't throw him out there and put him behind the 8 ball without an idea about what his future is and not give him talent to try and work with. Is this the year that maybe they really can start to evaluate him because they're going to give him a little bit more?
Well, what is I don't get the question. What is a little bit more? Jordan Lyles?
Well, they went out and they signed Jordan Lyles, which isn't a world beater, but he's, aside from John Means, he's better than anything they had.
But what are you talking about when you say it looks like and feels like they're going to give him a little more talent?
I'm wondering if they're
I'd have to know that, what talent it is, to answer that question appropriately.
Well, but that's what I'm asking. I'm asking, do you think they're going to give him, as in when
I don't know, but I would hardly think if they make even another signing equivalent to another Jordan Lyles, that would really be giving Brandon a fair shot at succeeding.
Well, then what's the what's the point of only having him have the 1-year deal? That's the thing. You're giving a guy. You're making this guy a lame duck manager.
Right, a 1-year deal makes no sense.
Well, you said it. That's sort of how I feel right now that they've set this dynamic up.
Yeah,
which doesn't seem particularly fair, does it?
No, it doesn't seem fair at all to Brandon.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can go out there and manage without a ton of talent, without any kind of guarantee for the future.
Right.
You'd like to think that they would operate better than that, and I guess that's why I'm thinking maybe this is a year where they finally start to evaluate.
You started the premise of the questions, Paul, with the notion that, hey, are they grooming Buck Britton? And I've said that, no, I don't think they're grooming Buck Britton to take his place, but I don't see a great deal of empathy right now for Brandon, from the front office.
Yeah, they're putting him in a really tough situation.
Yeah.
And for the record, I don't think that they're necessarily grooming Buck Britton either. I think they respect him and they like him a great deal.
Yeah, I think they like him, and I think that I don't think they're meeting any resistance from him. Where I'm guessing Gary Kendall was more of a mindset to want to do things a little bit his way, even though he's a good soldier, Gary. I don't think he embraces the analytics the way that Buck probably is.
I think the assumption of people that Buck Britton is the next Orioles manager comes from a few things. I think, one, it's because he's Zach Britton's brother, and he has those, I guess, the bloodlines in the Orioles organization in the past. And then he's also a guy who has come up through as sort of a younger guy. He's, I think he's in his 30s or 40s, so he kind of is more, I guess, in tune with some of these younger Orioles that are coming up, like Rutschman and DL Hall, Grayson Rodriguez, all these guys. He's more close to their age, and honestly, I think that's why. I think people look at him as this young, kind of analytically driven guy who's Zach Britton's brother, and that's basically the reason why he's just put out there as the next Orioles manager, but we really have no evidence to believe that one way or the other.
Yeah. I would think that what would most likely happen is if Brandon gets an extension at some point this season, that perhaps Buck is on his staff next year, and then you can start to connect the dots that they really have him earmarked as a potential replacement. But the fact that he moved up to AAA doesn't say that to me.
Yeah. It's basically all speculation and trying to read the tea leaves before they're fully formed is basically what it is. Now, the biggest news in baseball this past week, Stan, was the Hall of Fame results. And David Ortiz was the only one voted in and he was voted in on his first ballot. No Bonds, no Clemens, no Alex Rodriguez, no Sammy Sosa. Despite, I don't know about Sosa, but I know the other three superior players to David Ortiz. You could even make the argument that Scott Rowland, because of what he did defensively, was a superior player, yet those guys are left off, and David Ortiz is in on the first ballot. What was your opinion on this when you heard the results?
Well, I mean, I expected Ortiz to go in somehow, and while I won't paint him with the same brush that, Sosa, McGuire, and Clemens and Bonds have been painted with, I kind of expected Ortiz to get in, and I was really hoping that one other player would really have, and he did make a significant move. He's up to about 59%. Is left-handed reliever Billy Wagner, who I think is like, in my opinion, Billy Wagner was pretty close to being a first-time Hall of Famer. I mean, here's a guy in 903 innings, struck out 1,196 batters. His career whip of 0.998 is lower than Mariano Rivera's by a tick. He's just amazing. In 903 innings, he gave up 601 hits. I mean, he's just this guy was amazing, absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah, he was a phenomenal closer, one of the greatest of all time.
I think he's going to go in, but I think this was his 7th year. I think he's starting to get a little bit of a groundswell around him, and I don't think it's not like he's stacked behind people right now. So I think he's in position maybe next time out to get in.
Well, yeah, and let's talk about next time, because next year's ballot, the first-time Hall-eligible players, it's not – the cupboard's kind of bare. The best argument you can make is for Carlos Beltran. I think that Carlos Beltran is a Hall of Famer. When you look at his numbers, he's got over 300 steals, over 400 home runs, over 500 doubles, over 2,700 hits, and he has the highest steal success rate of anybody with 300 steals in the history of Major League Baseball. I think Carlos Beltran's a Hall of Famer, and he might be the only one next year.
I would agree, but does it matter that he was involved in the cheating scandal with the Astros?
That's the big question mark, right?
Yeah.
Stan, how do you feel about Carlos Beltran's candidacy?
I think Beltran is a Hall of Famer, but that doesn't mean I think he'll get in year one. There might be just this sort of, and I'm not saying all the writers get together and huddle and say, okay, you group, you're going to vote no because we don't want to signal that it was okay that he was involved in a cheating scandal. So it's an individual basis, but I think there would be enough of that feeling like we don't want to reward this guy with a first-time Hall of Fame, him getting in on the first ballot.
Yeah,
so
and
I would think he would probably go in the following year or two, but I think he's definitely a Hall of Famer.
Wait.
I think next year, Roland, Bobby Abreu, and my guy Billy Wagner. I think those guys stand a bit of a chance, to move up.
Bobby Abreu, really?
Yeah.
I never once looked at him and thought that guy's a Hall of Fame player.
I don't see him as a Hall of Fame player, but his name has been mentioned a great deal. Not this year. Last year was mentioned a great deal that he'd be looked at as a Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
the stolen bases and
somebody
he's got a rare mix. He was not somebody that automatically rose on my thinking, but I read enough about him that he was getting some recognition that way.
Well, somebody else, and you were talking about Billy Wagner, and I don't think that I think you can make a case, at least a case, for Francisco Rodriguez. This is a guy who has the all-time single-season saves record with 62. He has 6 seasons of 40 or more saves, 8 seasons of 30 or more saves, 976 innings pitched in his career. He has an ERA of 2.86, and his WHIP, not Billy Wagner level, but 1.155, and he has 437 career saves. What is Francisco Rodriguez's case for the Hall of Fame?
I don't know. I just don't think, Billy Wagner, to me had like almost a dominant career from the day he was a closer till the end. I see Francisco Rodriguez, we had him briefly. I mean, he's sort of the last 5 years of his career, he was constantly signing these like sort of 1-year contracts, and he was a half I just don't think he finished up strong enough to me to really be a strong first-year ballot Hall of Famer.
Well,
he's another guy that would take a while for me to develop.
But and here's the thing, Stan. I kind of thought the same thing, and I went and looked at his stats. 3 of his last 4 years, he had over 38 saves. He had that little bit of a lull in the middle of his career, and then he came back and put up a 44, 38, and 44 save in 3 years before his final season in 2017.
Yeah, I guess so. You timed this half year he spent, or 2 months he spent with the Orioles, was an oddball. Okay.
Yeah, that was kind of when he fell off a little bit. But then he comes back and he pitches really well the next 3 years after that. I think he's got a strong case. Go ahead.
Just to get back to Abreu for a second, I pulled up his numbers while we started to talk because you showed such a resistance to him. And it's the initial resistance I had. But his career batting average was .291, on-base percentage of .395, ended up with an OPS career-wise at .870. He had 288 home runs, 1,363 RBIs, 400 stolen bases.
Yeah,
I mean,
and also
the mix of power and speed was pretty remarkable.
And also a higher WAR than David Ortiz by 5.
Yeah. Yep.
So he played defense, so David Ortiz was all of his WAR was as a hitter.
That's fair. I just find that David Ortiz, when you look at his 55 career WAR, that's got to be towards the bottom of the MLB Hall of Fame. If you look at that, it's got to be towards the bottom.
He had the benefit of playing not only playing for those great Red Sox teams, but when the light was shining the brightest, he had his greatest moments.
Right.
Which is ironic. Because you could make that same argument about Curt Schilling.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
Kurt won't get in now, other than if he's elected by the the Veterans Committee or whatever they call it now.
And I wonder how the Hall of Fame is going to move forward next year and the year after, because if and maybe that is what helps get a guy like Scott Rowland in, or maybe a guy like Bobby Abreu, because really the only one you can make an argument for, and he might not get in because of what you already alluded to, Stan, is Carlos Beltran. And then 2024, the only guy you can make an argument for is Adrian Beltre, and he's a surefire.
I think
he's a surefire. You don't really have any other sure bets until 2025, when you have CC Sabathia and Ichiro Suzuki.
Right.
But you could have one guy voted in the next 2 years. How bad of a look is that for the Hall of Fame? Do you think that factors into who gets in the next year or two?
No, I don't think so. I think the writers as a whole, like I said, I don't think they get there and have a conversation, and I don't think MLB converses with anybody and says, "Hey guys, we really need to come up with," I think they let the sort of the chips fall where they are, But I think without any kind of great number of very strong candidates, I think the Rowlands, Abreu's, and Wagners really get a stronger look. And and I'm guessing I forget what year he's in. The other guy we haven't mentioned is Jeff Kent. Jeff Kent, to me, really is a Hall of Fame player. He may have been a first-class jerk, but the 8 seasons out of 10 or something like that, 100 RBI run, you can look at some great players and, Hall of Famers. They never did that, What's his WAR, Zach?
I can check that out, but I was going to ask you a question as well. If there's one guy who isn't in the Hall of Fame at this point, not including the guys we've already talked about for this 2022 election, but if there's one guy who isn't in the Hall of Fame that should be, who is it? Because for me, it's Kenny Lofton. I think Kenny Lofton is 100% a Hall of Famer, but who is that guy for you?
Well, for me, I no longer have that guy because, other than Kent and Wagner, I think Kent and Wagner are Hall of Famers for me. But they don't yell that they're Hall of Famers. The guy for me that's been subject to an injustice for 35, 40 years is Tony Oliva. Tony Oliva is one of the greatest baseball players I ever saw, and he had the unfortunate thing after about 6 or 8 years. He hurt his knee, and then he hurt it again, and he kind of limped to the finish line. He was a Hall of Famer. His career, in my opinion, he was a significantly better player than that same argument almost could be made for Don Mattingly. If Don Mattingly had a career where his back injury was somehow able to be exercised, and just look at the numbers that he put up when he was healthy, he was pretty remarkable too. So that's a player for me, probably more so than Lofton is Don Mattingly, who I thought was just about the best player in the game for 2 or 3 years. But again, I respect the fact that it wasn't 8 or 9 years. Tony Oliva, to me, was a much stronger claim than Mattingly.
Fair enough.
Because I saw the guy play every year. I'd see him the 9 times we played the Twins on TV, and I'd see him in Baltimore, 5 or 6 times. He was just a remarkable player.
Yeah, he certainly was. He led the league in doubles like 6 out of 8 years or something like that. Great hitter all around. You're absolutely right. Yep. Stan, you got a couple of guys coming up. Adam Gladstone and Big League Chew founder Rob Nelson on Monday, correct?
Yeah, Monday night I thought I'd have them on. I have 2 sports business guys in Marty Conway and Andy Dolich, two real big names in the sports business world. Adam doesn't have a sports business background per se, but he's been a general manager of minor league teams. He's been the assistant general manager of Team Israel, and worked for many minor league clubs. He was an minor league umpire for several years. and Rob Nelson played minor league baseball and played for that famous Portland team. I forget their name, but that movie was made of them. The oh God, what's their name? Was it the Mavericks? They were called. That Jim Bouton and him pitched for. Was owned by Bing Russell, who's Kurt Russell, the actor's father.
Wasn't it? Oh my God, the dirt balls of baseball. I know what
you're
talking about. I watched it on Netflix.
It's a great film. Rob pitched on that team, and he and Jim Bouton founded Big League Chew, and it was Rob's idea, and Jim Bouton never said it wasn't. But he put up the seed money for it. He had, he'd made some decent money in his big league career, Jim Bouton, and he put up some money that seeded the start of the company, and they were partners for a number of years. Rob still is the president of Big League Chew.
Yeah.
So we're gonna discuss sort of the state of the game and some of the questions you were asking me at the beginning about this. When is this thing going to end?
Sure.
What's it going to turn on? So
to answer a couple of your questions real quick, Stan, Jeff Kent's overall WAR was 55.5 for his career.
And was that Ortiz's too?
Ortiz was right around that. He was at like 53.8 or something like that.
Okay. So Kent's higher than him.
Yeah. The movie we're talking about was The Battered Bastards of Baseball, and it's about the Portland Mavericks that Kurt Russell was.
Portland Mavericks, right?
So
the Battered Bastards of Baseball.
Yep.
If you look it up on Google and you can watch it when, you can it'll probably come up and you can watch it.
I believe
really
it's still on
Netflix.
Movie. I saw it on Netflix.
That's actually where I watched it. Yeah, so about a year. I'll tell you when I finally broke down and watched it was sort of about 2 or 3 months into the pandemic.
Me too. That's exactly when I watched it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stan, always a pleasure. We will talk to you next week. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. Looking forward to it already. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes,
Bye.
sir. And that was Stan the Fan Charles, who has 2 great shows for you every week. Every Monday night, Stan and former Orioles pitcher Ross Grimsley visit with a different guest from the world of baseball. And every Wednesday night, Stan and Gary Stein chat with a different newsmaker from the world of sports. This week, Stan and Ross caught up with Don Stanhouse, and Stan and Gary had a very special show about the booming card industry with Bel Air Sports Cards Mel Lundgren. That's actually right near where I live.
Mm-hmm.
Find those shows under the videos tab at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or at PressBoxOnline.com/video. And again, coming up this Monday, Stan and Ross are going to host a baseball roundtable with Adam Gladstone and Big League Chew founder Rob Nelson. Stan made I always looked at Bobby Abreu, and I saw a good player. A guy who was the face of the Phillies franchise for a good bit.
Yeah.
He had a 12-year run that was phenomenal, and yet only made 2 All-Star teams in that 12-year run. But he had a 12-year run where he hit close to or over 300, 20, 30 homers, 30 to 40 doubles. He was and over 100 RBIs. He was a hell of a ball player. I never looked at him, and maybe he falls victim to the same thing as Scott Rowland because he wasn't flashy. And I think that's kind of a similar thing with Francisco Rodriguez, where his numbers are comparable to just about any closer not named Trevor Hoffman or Mariano. The name I forget is Mariano Rivera. Go figure.
That's a big one.
Yeah. Maybe he wasn't as flashy because he pitched for the Angels and the Brewers.
Yeah. Abreu is not a guy that I see as a Hall of Famer. He's a great player, no doubt. Like you said, hell of a player. Hall of Famer, I don't know. I mean, there's certain stats that you kind of have to have if you want to make it to the Hall of Fame, and 288 home runs is just a little bit low for me. And I know, obviously hitting home runs it's not every part of everyone's game, but for me, I just want to see that number be a little bit higher. And the 291 average, yeah, sure, but we don't really go off of average for too many things these days. I don't know. Bobby Abreu, great player, Hall of very great players, not Hall of Fame. That's my opinion.
It's funny, man, because I have this mentality towards the Hall of Fame that I really shouldn't have. And for example, a guy like Mike Mussina, I believe, belongs in the Hall of Fame, and I always thought he belonged in the Hall of Fame, so he's the outlier for me, because he was never the best pitcher in the league.
No.
He was just one of the best and was very, very good. And I think with a guy like Carlos Beltran, who you look at his numbers, he is a Hall of Famer. He is a Hall of Famer, but he was never the best player in the league. There were always guys that played at the same time as him that were better than he was.
Right.
And so when I look at Carlos Beltran, yeah, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, but
I think he had one season where I think he was the best player in baseball. It was like the early 2000s. I would make that argument, but you're right for sure.
Well, yeah, when he went to the Astros and helped them on that playoff run, he was phenomenal. He was the best hit. At that moment, he was the hottest best hitter in baseball, and I think that might be the year that you're talking about.
I'm thinking of somewhere when he was with the Royals in the early 2000s. He had some great seasons, but he won Rookie of the Year obviously in 1999. But he had some great years obviously with St. Louis even, and then of course when he went to Houston at the tail end of his career and helped them brought in that kind of leadership style and obviously I think book Astroball talks a lot about that and how Carlos Beltran really led them, cheating or not, to the World Series. And Carlos Beltran was a big part of that. He had an okay year, he wasn't great, but he brought that leadership presence and that veteran presence there. But I mean he had some.
I was talking about the first time around.
Oh, you're talking about the first time around.
Okay. We were talking like 2005. Something,
right.
Something
so
he
led them to multiple playoff berths, everything. And with his leadership, and he's a great player, definite Hall of Famer. He's a guy who has 70 WAR. I mean, he's one of the best players of all time. He should be a Hall of Famer. He deserves to be there. But he's not as flashy as like a lot of guys in the Hall of Fame. So he's not a Griffey or something.
Yeah,
so
but he was just one of those guys where you saw him every year, and you're like, well, yeah, that's Carlos Beltran.
He just shows up.
Yeah,
right.
It was like that's Carlos Beltran. There he is. That's that guy who kills us.
I kind of felt the same about Torrey Hunter, and I don't believe Torrey Hunter ever got in.
Nah.
But he's a guy that I kind of felt...
He's on the ballot, but
he was on the ballot. I kind of felt he was the same way. He would show up every year and be extremely reliable. And I caught, kind of when I started watching baseball more the tail end of Torrey Hunter's career, but another guy that I kind of feel like a very great player is not Hall of Fame.
The thing with Torrey Hunter, he was a good hitter.
He was.
But if you take away his defense, you look at him as a Hall of Famer.
Incredible defender.
The defense is what makes you really have to consider him. But
Beltran is definitely better. I'm not comparing the two in that way, but I'm just saying he's a guy who kind of reminds me of that non-flashy but shows up and plays every day kind of style.
All right. Well, the first hour of the Bat Around is just about in the books. It has been brought to you by. It's just about in the books. Just about in the books. It's been brought to you by RAV4. Make the most out of every day in a Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go and in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on the new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today. We got to catch a break. When we come back in from Baseball America, he is Kyle Glaser.
Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. This is your chance to win big right in your own backyard. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all of the action from the best seat in the house. Make every moment more at the all-new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
Need to hone your computer skills to boost your career? Or maybe you want an IT certification? CCBC Continuing Education has the courses and programs you need for a career in the computer field. And it's all tuition-free. From the basics to specialized training, we have the classes you need from hardware to programming to cybersecurity and so much more. It's your choice. It's your career. Call 443-840-4700 or visit ccbcmd.edu/computer training.
Glory Days Grill's winter seasonal menu is back with comfort classics like their house-made meatloaf and short rib grilled cheese. It also features the center-cut sirloin with grilled shrimp, the char-grilled pork tenderloin, grilled meatloaf sandwich, smoky thigh wings with Alabama barbecue sauce, and a Brussels and bacon appetizer. All of these items pair well with Devil's Backbone 8-point IPA or their anniversary IPA brewed by Devil's Backbone. And try their seasonal cocktails, Blood Orange Bourbon Cider, Apple Ginger Mule, and Captain's Hot Cider. Find out more and get your order in today at glorydaysgrill.com. Great food, good sports.
Hey guys, it's Paul Valley, and there's a new era of Glenn Clark Radio as I've joined Glenn every weekday from 10 a.m. to noon. There will be some changes, but what won't change is the absolute best daily discussion of Baltimore sports.
New Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Rashad Bateman.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
He is outfielder Cedric Mullins.
Thank you guys for having me.
Trey Mancini.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
He is Kevin Zeitler.
Thank you. Very happy to be a part of this.
Ravens kicker Justin Tucker.
Thanks for having me.
Adley Rutschman.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
John Angelos.
Thanks a lot. Good to be with you.
Ryan Mountcastle.
Thanks for having me on, guys. guys.
Marlon Humphrey.
Thank you.
Quarterback for the University of Maryland, Talia Tungavailoa.
Thank you guys for having me.
He is J.K. Dobbins.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
The great Ray Lewis.
Always good to be on.
Coach Mark Turgeon.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
He is Mr. Cal Ripken Jr.
Good chatting with you.
You can watch us live at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. And podcasts are available on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a wide range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Toyota to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
All right, welcome back to the Bat Around here. We are entering hour number 2 of the program today. We have some people commenting on the show feeds saying that they're bored with the Hall of Fame talk. That is what happened this week. The Hall of Fame voting and the controversial results are what happened this week, and we're going to talk about it more later, guys. I'm just going to put it out there for you. But right now, we are going to acquiesce to this fan's request, and we are going to talk some Orioles baseball and some Orioles prospects with Kyle Glaser from Baseball America. Kyle, how are you this morning?
Doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on again, man. We always love getting a chance to talk to you because the best part of the Orioles right now is their farm system, and for all intents and purposes, they have the best farm system in baseball right now. Your top 5 prospect, your top 100 prospects list came out, and it featured 5 Orioles. Adley Rutschman at number 1, Grayson Rodriguez at number 6, D.L. Hall at number 52, Gunnar Henderson at number 57, and Colton Cowser at number 98. Let's start at the top here, Kyle. Adley, from what I understand, it was close to a toss-up between Rutschman, Bobby Witt Jr., and Julio Rodriguez. What made Adley Rutschman ultimately the top choice for Baseball America?
Yeah, there were a lot of conversations among our staff. We were split. I personally felt Adley Rutschman was the best prospect in baseball. And we started kind of polling and surveying front office executives around the game, GMs, assistant GMs, scouting directors, all the high-level folks who have kind of a 30,000-foot view of everything. And ultimately, they came back that Adley should be number 1. And again, all 3 of those guys got multiple votes. There's definitely a lot of discussion about all these guys being franchise-caliber talents. But ultimately, there's a sense that what Adley provides offensively is every bit as much as Julio Rodriguez or Bobby Witt Jr., which is essentially 280 with 25 to 30 home runs, while also playing Gold Glove caliber defense. That type of player just doesn't come around very often, and ultimately makes him the best prospect in baseball.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people, especially in these parts, would agree with you there. Now, how much does he really have left to prove at the minor league level? And once he gets here, where do you rank him as far as major league catchers in the game today?
Yeah, the fact he went to AAA last year and performed as well as he did shows he doesn't really have a whole lot left to prove in the minors. Now, there's always little things you can get better at, especially catching AAA pitchers, guys who've been in the major leagues, and maybe making some adjustments approach-wise, but there's not really a ton left for him to prove in the minor leagues. In terms of where he'll be in the hierarchy of Major League catchers as soon as he arrives, look, for even the very, very best prospects, it's a big transition going from the minor leagues to the major leagues, especially when you're talking about a catcher who's now dealing with game planning and learning hitters and all the things he has to do defensively in addition to adjusting to Major League pitching on the offensive side. I think it would be too much to suggest he'd be a top 5 catcher the day he steps into the major leagues, but he has the ability to adjust and grow, and over time, he has a chance to be one of the top 3 catchers in baseball, if not the top catcher in baseball. I just don't think it's fair to expect that of him the day he shows up.
Fair enough. Now, another guy that has the expectations is Grayson Rodriguez. He's the number 6 overall prospect, your number 1 pitching prospect in baseball. Elite command of 4 different pitches, a fastball that touches 100 miles an hour. He's probably going to start the year at AAA unless he has a spring training that just blows everybody's minds. The thing here with Grayson Rodriguez, he still has something to prove. He's never been able to get very deep into games. He averaged under 5 innings pitched per start in 23 starts this past season. Where do you put him as far as his major league timeline, and what does he need to work on to get there?
Yeah, I think there's a chance he makes his debut during the season. I don't think, again, it's fair to put him in the opening day rotation. He's still a very, very young pitcher who you see the ability. He has a chance for 4+ pitches. He has command of both sides of the plate. He's got that big mound presence. And for a minor leaguer, he's actually shown some pretty solid durability. But you're right, just continuing to learn to maybe get through a lineup a third time and take those 5-inning starts and turn them into 7-inning starts. And also just facing more upper-level hitters. He did really, really well at Double-A last year, but Triple-A hitters, those are guys who have major league time, who know how to wait a pitcher out, who aren't going to chase some of the stuff that lower-level hitters do. So letting him just go, spend some more time in Double-A, Triple-A, learn to pitch deeper into games, face upper-level hitters, that will only serve him well and the Orioles well long-term. Again, I think there's a chance he makes his debut this year, but realistically, his first full season as a full-fledged Orioles rotation member, I expect that to be in 2023.
Yeah, and I think that's a wise thing. You don't want to rush anybody, especially when the Orioles aren't expected to be much of a competitive team this year. Is his ceiling what we're hearing that it is? This could be one of the elite pitchers in the game when it's all said and done.
He has a chance to be a true number one starter. Again, it's so rare to see a young pitcher have his mix of stuff, command, physicality. But again, number one starters don't go 5 innings. Number one starters throw 7 innings out, or at least are a candidate to pitch 7-8 innings every time out. They log 200 innings a year. The aces are guys who are durable, not just talented. So that's really the final piece of the puzzle here. The Orioles turning him loose, letting him throw 7 innings at a time, and show he can be that durable workhorse at the front of the rotation. If he does that and shows he can hold up under that, because health is always a concern with pitchers, then yeah, he has a chance to be a true number one caliber starter in the major leagues.
Now, you can't have a conversation about Grayson Rodriguez without including DL Hall. He's a left-hander with incredible stuff, kind of lacks that elite command, and he had his season cut short after 7 starts in 2021. Kyle, he's never thrown more than 90, 91 innings in a season, and he's entering his 5th season in the system. That arm is a big league arm, and it's an elite big league arm. But what are his big league projections? Should Orioles fans be concerned? And how likely is it that he becomes a bullpen piece rather than a starting rotation piece?
Yeah, there's a very real chance that happens. In terms of how much Orioles fans should be concerned, I think this is kind of a bit of a make or break year. If he fails to stay healthy again, or can't stay on the mound again, or his control doesn't take a jump forward again, then you probably do have to start talking about, okay, realistically, what's the best way to get the most out of this guy? Even if he can just take the ball every 5th day and just last 5 innings, that would be great because his stuff is so good. It's so overwhelming. And if he can just be a good guy who takes the ball every 5th day, that's still a positive outcome. But if he shows he can't make it through a full season doing that, then you do have to start looking at him as a bullpen option. I think back to a guy like a Josh Hader who had filthy stuff, but his command as a starter wasn't great, and ultimately he became a bullpen weapon. DL Hall has ridiculous stuff where it's not out of the question for him to become that lights-out left-handed reliever or closer if it has to happen. I do think you give him another chance to start, but this is becoming a little bit of a make-or-break year because he's going to, his 40-man roster clock is going to start ticking.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right there. I believe he's already on the 40-man roster. So, and that's a guy where if they don't get something done in the CBA, he can't even start pitching really competitively until they get a new deal worked out. So this is all eyes are going to be on DL Hall if they weren't already this year. After Hall and after Rodriguez, at the upper levels of the minor league system, there's not really much else for the Orioles pitching-wise. Are there any arms in this system that you think are about to take a big step forward?
It's hard to say. The truth is the strength of this system is the position players. Yeah, I personally, the answer is no. I don't know if there is. There's always guys who pop, and there's always breakout guys. The Orioles pitching development has made some strides, so there probably is someone we're not thinking about or talking about. But to be honest, I don't see an obvious candidate right now where you say, ooh, this guy's really about to pop. It really is Rodriguez and Hall at the top, and then you kind of have this collection of guys below them, and you're just hoping 1 or 2 of them take a step forward that maybe wasn't expected.
Now, you did mention that the strength of this system is the position players. Gunnar Henderson, he played at 3 levels in his first pro season. There's talk that he could stay at shortstop, but ultimately his best position may end up being third base. He comes in at number 57 on your top 100 list. What kind of player is Gunnar Henderson, and why is he in your top 100 and Jordan Westburg is on the outside looking in despite possibly having the better season last year?
Henderson's younger and projects to be a better pure hitter. This is a bat-first prospect that can really, really do some damage at the plate. Again, just someone that there's a lot of confidence can be a potential, middle of the order type of hitter. Whether he stays at shortstop or third base, it's not really going to matter just because he can do so much damage at the plate. If Jordan Westburg had a very good season, and he's a good player who's not far off our top 100, you have to remember he's a college guy who did a lot of his damage in low A last year.
True.
You really should ignore college stats in low A. That those guys are playing levels of competition below them, and just look at the high A, double A performance. And again, he's a very good player. But Henderson being younger, playing up to the same levels, again, there's just more ability there at the plate, and ultimately that makes the top 100 guy for us.
The Orioles had the 5th overall pick in the draft last year. They took Colton Kelzer. He has a phenomenal hit tool and batter's eye. His power is developing. Maybe not exactly what you want for a guy who could end up being a corner outfielder, but the hit tool is incredible. How quickly could this guy move? Is there a real chance of him being in Baltimore in 2023?
There's certainly a chance. Obviously, that would be an accelerated timeline. He has all the tools to hit. He's a very, very advanced hitter. The swing is beautiful. The way his approach works at the plate is as good as you'll find, at least in last year's draft class. It's just a matter of going out and proving it. He did do a lot of his damage against mid-major competition at Sam Houston State. And last year's pro debut, while exceptional, again, college guy facing, rookie ball and low A competition. You don't want to read too much into it. This year, though, it's a high A. That's when we're going to see really, okay, this is where his hitting ability is. Again, I'm a believer. Most evaluators are believers, but you still have to go out and prove it. And this is where the competition's about to get real for him.
Another outfielder, Kyle Stowers, led the Orioles farm in home runs, was up there in RBIs, OPS, on base percentage. He was a co-minor league player of the year with Adley Rutschman. I was a little surprised to not see him make the top 100. How far away from that top prospects list is he for you all, and how do you envision him moving forward?
He's on the radar, and again, he had a fantastic season at AAA last year. You should not take that away from him. Ultimately, when you're looking at a top 100, it's which 100 minor leaguers will go on to have the best major league careers. Okay. And a big part of that is making consistent contact against high-quality pitching. His strikeouts were really, really, really elevated last year, and so you just want to see him cut those down a little bit to project above average to all-star caliber major league success. Right now, the expectations for Kyle Stowers are when he gets to the majors, it might be a low average, decent on base, solid power, but with a lot of strikeouts guy, which again, you can live with and put every day in your lineup, but it just doesn't rise to the level of a top 100 caliber prospect when you look 10 years from now at, what these guys' major league careers were, who had the 100 best major league careers. But if you can cut those whiffs down, then we might be talking about someone who crosses that threshold.
Well, certainly. Now, and the last guy I want to ask you about is Kobe Mayo. And I saw on another prospects list that somebody said that he could end up being maybe one of the best offensive prospects by the end of the year. How much promise have you seen from Kobe Mayo, and where do you rank him? He's not in your top 100, but how does Baseball America view Kobe Mayo moving forward?
Yeah, we view him as a very, very young, talented player who absolutely has the potential to blossom into kind of an offensive monster. There's no question the ingredients are there. We'll just have to see him again go out and do it, perform, and show he can do it against full season competition. Everything he did last year, there was a lot of the complex league, but he got to low A a bit as well. And this is going to be a year where you can absolutely see him breaking out and having that type of season where he goes low A to high A and puts up big numbers offensively across the board. But again, there's a lot of guys like that every year who you think are going to break out. About half do, half of them don't. So it's just going to be about him going out and doing it. But there's no question the underlying promise is there. And it would not be a surprise if a year or two from now you do see him on a top 100 list. He's on our radar.
Now, this guy has, from what I saw, I believe he has close to a 70-grade arm. Does he have the glove to stick at third base, or does the lack of glove and the ultimate power that he has move him over to the other side of the infield?
That's TBD. Again, this is a very young player who still has a lot of physical growth ahead, a lot of development ahead. And you know what? Leave him at third base for now. See if he improves and continues to grow there. And if he does, awesome. If not, you flip him over to first base. The bat projects to be an impact bat regardless of where he plays. So again, it's more of a, hey, just let them play third base, see what happens, and make a decision from there.
Kyle, I'm just curious how, I guess you guys think at Baseball America and how you exactly rank these players based on performance and also projection and all of that. So I did want to ask about a guy who was drafted by the Yankees 30th overall in 2019, Anthony Volpe, who had a really, really incredible 2021. Obviously, was an A-ball and A+, so it's not exactly, I guess you can take those stats for a little bit for granted, but he had a 294 batting average, hit 27 home runs, 1,027 OPS. The guy stole 33 bases. He had an all-around complete offensive season and probably one of the best outside of guys like Rutschman and Bobby Witt Jr. He came in at number 10 on your top 100 this year. How close is he to moving into the top 5? And really, if he puts another one of these offensive performances together at AA or AAA in the coming years, does he make it into your maybe your top 3 or top 2 prospects?
Certainly. I mean, a lot of the guys ahead of him are scheduled to graduate within the next year, and if he continues to build on the strides he made, I mean, he just completely overhauled his swing, his body, his everything during the shutdown, a lot of which happened behind closed doors, especially because the Yankees didn't play in structural leagues, so no one got to see him. I mean, if he takes another jump forward, again, those guys ahead of him graduate, you could certainly see him, I mean, potentially even as the number 1 prospect in baseball. He's a very, very talented player, and again, see what he does this year and what happens ahead of him. It's certainly a possibility.
Kyle, always great stuff every time we talk to you. We really appreciate you always taking time to come on our program here. How can people follow you on social media?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Kyle A. Glaser, and obviously just keep reading us, Baseball America, baseballamerica.com. A lot of good stuff coming out there, so you can read me there and follow me on Twitter at Kyle A. Glaser again, and those are the best ways to get in touch with me.
We certainly appreciate it, Kyle. You have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll be talking more baseball with you here in the coming weeks and months.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Take care. That was Kyle Glaser, who is always gracious enough to come on our program and talk with us. Man, he always gives such in-depth insight into these players. It's interesting. Like I knew that the reason that Jordan Westbrook's not on top 100 and Gunnar Henderson is because Gunnar is younger. But the way that he broke it down, saying Gunner's going to end up having the better hit tool, and he's younger and more.
It's about projection, right?
Right. And the way he put it, that these top 100 prospects are who is going to have the top 100 baseball careers, not what you did last year.
Right.
Like Kyle Stowers was probably, there is no question, he was a top 100 prospect in the game based on what he did last year, but is he going to continue to be that guy moving forward? So I think it's kind of interesting how he views him. Timelines for us. I kind of expected him to say Grayson Rodriguez would be up here sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Colton Cowser would be up here sooner rather than later, but he wasn't really ready to commit to Cowser for 2023 at the big league level. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, I definitely think he's going to be here by 2023. I think he could be the opening day center fielder because I think there's a great chance Mullins gets moved in the next year. And I think Colton Cowser is the guy there for the long-term future. And Colton Cowser, to me, is a guy who's so advanced already. And like Kyle said, obviously, you have to take what he did at the low A level in Delmarva with a grain of salt, because he is a guy who was very developed and probably playing way ahead of the competition at Delmarva. So I understand that, and he hit like 375, and that's obviously not at all going to transfer over to AA and AAA. So we have to see what he does there. But Colton Cowser to me is an all-around polished talent and a guy who's almost major league ready already. So I think having
ready already,
yeah, but having a 2022 to get into AA and AAA. And prove himself, and he'll probably start at Aberdeen is what I would assume, but move up like Stowers did and finish out in AAA. I think he could easily make this roster by opening day 2023. I really think that. I just am very high on this guy's talent all around, and he did play at Sam Houston State, so it's not the best competition in the world, and that's one of the reasons I was a little bit skeptical pre-draft, is just because you don't really know what you're getting from a guy from Sam Houston State. But I think he's shown that he's an all-around polished talent and should be here pretty soon.
Yeah, and That's a guy who, the knock was the fact that he played at Sam Houston State, but then he comes out in the FCL, and he hits 500,
right,
and then he goes to A-ball and he hits 347.
Yeah, so I think he hit even higher than that.
So he hit 375 for the year.
I think you're right. You're right.
Yeah, and I think he hit like right around 350, like 345 to 350 at A-ball, and So he did what he was supposed to do.
347.
Yeah. So if he's I'm like Rain Man. He did what he's supposed to do. If he wants to be that projectable top 5 pick that he's supposed to be, it's up to him to go out there and do it. And he did everything that he was supposed to do last year. This is a guy I'm going to be keeping an eye on this year. And a lot of these guys are the reason I'm going to be buying minor league baseball TV again this year, so that I can watch these prospects, because for damn sure I'm not driving 4 hours or 6 hours or however long it takes to get to Norfolk to go watch Grayson Rodriguez pitch. I'm going to have to watch him from afar on my computer like I did last year.
I went to Norfolk last year for the first time. It took me 6 hours to get down there.
Yeah, it's a hike.
It's a really long way.
It's a hike. I would love for the Orioles, and before it was Norfolk, I believe it was Rochester. So. Which is also tough. It's also really far away. I would love for the Orioles AAA team to be closer, but their other teams are so close.
I would love for them to upgrade Aberdeen, because you have to make a bigger stadium if you want to make a team like Aberdeen AAA. You'd have to make a way bigger stadium. You have to have like a minimum number of seats to make a team or a ballpark, a AAA ballpark. But I would love to see them renovate Aberdeen to a much bigger stadium, and then make it AAA.
I just don't think
they're never gonna do it. But I just wish, because it's so close to us, and I go there all the time anyway. So I'd love to be able to see the top talent at the organization there. But Aberdeen still gets some great guys. It's always fun to go down there.
I don't think that they're going to be building any or renovating any stadiums.
And Aberdeen's already really nice.
Yeah. I'm a fan of going to Aberdeen, and in fact, I don't think I made it to a game there last year, which is really sucks, honestly, because I went and saw Adley Rutschman's Aberdeen debut.
I was there.
He got a base. I was there too. I think this is before we knew each other.
Yeah, it was. Well, I worked there for 2 years in high school, so I was there almost every night.
I sat in a suite for another game later that year, and that's where I got. If you see me if anybody listens to the show and sees me at the gym and you see me wearing a Delaware Blue Hens yellow shirt with the sleeves cut off because sun's out, guns out.
Yeah.
If you ever see me wearing that shirt, I got that at the Ironbirds game, because I'm sitting there in a luxury suite and I see the people with the shirt cannons walking on the field, and they're only ever shooting it into the lower level. And so I yelled down, I'm like, hey, shoot one up here. And they were like, we're out, but next time. So next time, they immediately came over to me and they gave me the signal, and they shot one in a shirt cannon up to me, and I called it hands catch. Take some notes, Hollywood Brown. But it was cool. It was a crowning moment for me in my baseball attendance resume.
I got a shirt out of a shirt cannon at a Towson basketball game this year. First time I've ever gotten one of those things. I never win anything or get anything like that at games for free, so I got one.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Me either. There was one time where I should have called a foul ball. Oh my gosh, we're going off on a tangent. We're gonna get a break after this, but so I went to.
I remember this.
I went to an Orioles game with my best friend Adam, who you met watching the Ravens Steelers game.
Yep.
And I was sitting on the aisle seat. Adam is significantly taller than me. I'm like 5'7.5". Adam's like 6'2", 6'1", 6'2".
Yeah.
So Adam's like, dude, can I please sit on the end? I need more leg space. And I was like, sure. So I switched seats with him, and in the first freaking inning, Geronimo Heel, this is how long ago this was, Geronimo Heel hits a line drive foul right to that seat. Adam just stands up with his glove, and that also shows how long ago it was that we were still taking gloves to the game, stands up with his glove and catches the ball. If I had been in that seat, it would have been mine. But my best friend got it instead because I was a nice guy.
Look, we also remember the story that you told on the show of the ball hitting off of your hand in April this year, while you were also sitting in the upper section. So
I forgot. I feel like that's a repressed memory.
I remember that.
That was in the first inning of opening day at Camden Yards, and it's a pop-up, and I'm holding my beer in one hand, and see, I'm holding my beer in my left hand. And I go to catch the ball with my right hand. See, the thing is,
you just got to sacrifice the beer at that point.
If you're but I'm in the front row. If I sacrifice the beer's falling down on somebody below me.
That's okay. No, I'm just kidding. That's not okay.
You must be related
to
Pat Mahomes'
okay.
fiance. But so if you're a right-handed guy, which I am, if you throw right-handed, you catch with your left hand. So the ball hit me in my right hand. I'm not used to catch. I can catch with that hand, but I'm not used to it. I'm holding a beer. The adrenaline's going. I'm super excited. I'm like everything is slowing down because it's like, oh my god, this is gonna happen. and the ball hits me right in the palm of my hand, and there was a delayed reaction closing my hand and just bounced right out. I got numerous phone calls immediately from people who knew me that were that were around that section, giving me hell for not catching that. I thank you for bringing that up because it was 100% a repressed memory.
And then Jim Palmer called you out later that year on TV.
It was that same day.
It was that same day.
Jim Palmer called me out the same day.
Well, that was a great day for you.
Because there was a picture of me and my then fiance, who's now my wife, who's not happy with me right now. They put a picture. Melanie Newman posted a picture of us at the game because it was our first game since we got engaged in the skybox.
Right. The Rio Ruiz walk-off home run day.
Yeah, Rio Ruiz. Still the last walk-off home run for the Orioles. And Jim Palmer called me out for dragging my feet, for not having tied the knot yet.
I was sitting on my couch watching that game, and I just hear Paul Valley. I'm like, I was on my phone because it was commercial break, and then it comes back, and Masson always has these weird things where they like give the next game scoreboard or whatever. It's nothing ever interesting, and I just hear Paul Valley, and I'm like, huh?
You look up, and there's my mug,
and
with
there you are, and I'm like, whoa. That's Paul Valley.
There's that guy. I know that guy.
Right, and then Jim's like, wow, Paul, you're dragging your feet a little bit, and I was losing it.
Did you have an elf moment? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I know him.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do that, but it was in my head. I was like, whoa, Paul Valley.
That's that guy.
That guy.
There he is.
Guys, I know that guy.
We really got to catch a break. I just want to remind you that, look, you can't bet on sports in the state of Maryland on your phone, but you can do brick and mortar. If you do want to bet on your phone, though, you can go to Underdog Fantasy Football. They have player props, parlays, and traditional fantasy games. They're all available, and we're going to give you some free money to play with thanks to our friends at Underdog Fantasy Football. You can go to UnderdogFantasy.com, to UnderdogFantasy.com, or download the Underdog Fantasy app. Use the code PressBox. Whatever you download, up to $100, we're going to match it. That's right, just up to $100. So, Zach, if you go in and bet $92.33, we're going to match $92.33 when you use the code PressBox with Underdog Fantasy Football. I wanted to make my first bet last week and totally spaced it. I want to make my first bet tomorrow. Maybe put down $50 if PressBox is going to match me, and see if I can't win some real coin here to help pay for a dog. Anyway, well into the second hour of the bat around here. When we come back, Zach's going to sound off on something that I agree with him on, but maybe not on the player. And then we're going to get in some Orioles banter here on the bat around.
Glory Days Grill's winter seasonal menu is back with comfort classics like their house-made meatloaf and short rib grilled cheese. It also features the center-cut sirloin with grilled shrimp, the char-grilled pork tenderloin, grilled meatloaf sandwich, smoky thigh wings with Alabama barbecue sauce, and a Brussels and bacon appetizer. All of these items pair well with Devil's Backbone 8-point IPA or their anniversary IPA brewed by Devil's Backbone. And try their seasonal cocktails, Blood Orange Bourbon Cider, Apple Ginger Mule, and Captain's Hot Cider. Find out more and get your order in today at glorydaysgrill.com. Great food, good sports.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
From all of the biggest games to the smallest events, make every bet worth your while at MyBookie. Start by doubling your first deposit instantly with MyBookie's first deposit bonus up to $1,000. Double your money before you even place a bet, and all you have to do is sign up and deposit using the exclusive promo code PRESSBOX at mybookie.ag. If your first deposit is $100, MyBookie adds $100 so you can start with $200 to play with. If your first deposit is $1,000, MyBookie adds $1,000 so you can start with $2,000 to play with. With tons of great games and prop bets to take advantage of this week, there is truly something for everyone. Don't wait any longer. Head to MyBookie today to redeem your double deposit bonus so you can start winning big today. That's promo code PRESSBOX to receive double your first deposit instantly in your account. No hassle, no wait. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.
The latest issue of Press Box is available now, and it's our very special annual Best of issue. On the cover, we celebrate Justin Tucker as our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, honoring his historic on-field achievements, but also the unprecedented relationship he shared with Baltimore. Inside, we recognize the top people, performances, and moments of 2021, including Cedric Mullins' incredible season and the dominance of local Paralympic athletes. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
All right, we're back here on the Bat Around. Really great segment there with Kyle Glaser talking about some Orioles prospects.
Kyle Glaser's great.
Yeah, he really is. He's always so willing to come on the show, man.
It's awesome.
It's really awesome. Orioles. I'm sorry, not Orioles banter. Zach, you have something that you want to sound off on here.
Yeah.
And I agree with the premise. And your premise is trading prospects for pitching.
Yes.
I agree with the premise. Not sure I agree with the player.
Let me explain. Okay, so I'm prefacing this by saying in the near future, the Orioles should be trading some of their stockpile of prospects for pitching. Kyle Glaser was just on here a minute ago, and he said this is a system that is strong because of the position players. They don't have a lot of pitching. We've talked about this many times. Dan Connolly's been all over this.
Which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because the downfall of the Orioles has always been the pitching.
Right.
For the last 20 years.
They didn't focus on it again in this rebuild, but it seems like, and that could change, of course. They could go into this draft and draft 3 pitchers in the first 3 rounds and really bolster the system. I don't know. They might do that. However, at the current moment, and Dan Connolly wrote an article about this a few years ago that everyone got really upset about, just last year actually, and he said the Orioles don't have a lot of pitching behind what they have in Grayson Rodriguez, DL Hall, Kyle Bradish. Those are the guys. So the Orioles are going to have to start making trades at some point. Trade a guy maybe like a Jordan Westberg. I don't know if it's going to be that good, but we'll see. They're going to start trading guys eventually. I think they need to start making trades by this season. That's my opinion. You need to start stockpiling that starting pitching rotation now, so by 2023-24, you can have guys that have been in the system for a little while, and you can really build out a good starting rotation. So I think you've got to start a little bit small. You're not going to go out there and trade for someone the level of Garrett Cole. It's just not going to happen.
Right,
and
not yet.
Right, and it's right now you've got to look to guys that are going to be willing. Teams are going to be willing to be moved, and teams that are kind of in a little bit of a rebuilding or retooling state, which the team I picked out here was, which I picked out the Chicago Cubs. They're a little bit of a retool, I guess you could call it. They just signed Marcus Stroman, which is kind of weird after trading basically all of their good players in the season. They traded Rizzo, Chris Bryant. They still have a few good players in this team, but they definitely sold. They got Nick Madrigal now. I mean, they're retooling. They're kind of changing their processes, changing their ways a little bit. But they have a pitcher named Adbert Alzolay, who you probably heard of. He's a pretty okay pitcher is the way I describe him.
He was a top 100 prospect.
He was.
Pitched in the Futures
He
game.
was. He's only 26 years old. He put up a 4.58 ERA last year, but the number that sticks out to me, he struck out 9.2 per 9, and then he also had a whip of 1.162. And then he had a WAR of 0.8 this past year. He did lose 13 games, but he lost 13 games because Chicago lost a lot of games this year, and they weren't very good. And frankly, by the end of the season, they weren't trying, and that doesn't help. And record is not really important for a starting pitcher. I don't really care about it. It's just some people I know like to hear about it. But Adbert Alzolay is a guy that I think the Orioles should look into going after. If the Chicago Cubs are willing to trade some of their guys, which we've clearly seen they are, he's controllable, he's young, and he's a pitcher that is better than Jordan Lyles and can definitely fill out the number 2 spot on this pitching staff for a little while, I think in the coming years, and you can have him under pre-arbitration contract at basically the league minimum for a few more years, and then maybe he gets even better with age. Maybe his 27, 28-year-old seasons are going to be even better than his 26-year-old season was. So for me, this is a guy that you could just consider as a starting piece. He's not the guy you're going to trade for as your ace, but if you trade, let's say, trying to think of a good idea for this one. I don't know. I don't want to throw a prospect's name out there, but let's say a mid to low level prospect or 2 for this guy, which I think is plausible. Maybe the Cubs would make you give up a little more than that, but if it's not something that's going to break the bank on the Orioles' end, this could be a really good ad as a number 2 behind John Means.
Yeah, I like the premise. He's going to be 20. He's going to be 27.
He's going to be 27
in 4 weeks. March 1st is his birthday. ERA was like 4.58.
4.58.
4.58.
And the FIP was 4.65, so it wasn't really that much of a difference.
Yeah,
so that's good.
So he was okay in the minor leagues, a sub-4 ERA in his minor league career, but he wasn't great. Hasn't been great. Honestly, it really depends on. To me, it depends on the prospect that you're trading, that you're giving up.
Absolutely, and
I'm not sure that I'd be willing to give up anything higher than a top 20 prospect. I mean, and when I say that, I mean like 20 to 30 in the top 20.
Because of his age and his ability to be controlled for over 3 more years, I think he's going to take a little bit more than you would expect.
See, he's not that young.
No, he's not. But
that was his first full season last year,
Yeah.
and he's going to be 27. He's not that young. You're talking about him like he's 22, 23. He's 27 years old.
Well, yeah, the thing is, though, you aren't going to get a guy who's 22, 23. That's just the problem.
Yeah. No. What the Orioles are going to have to do, and it's kind of clear as day to me, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to get their pitching from the free agent market and through trades, and that's one of the reasons they moved that left field wall back. They can say, oh, we really think it's going to help our pitchers. The Orioles' number one reason for moving that left field wall back is that they know they're going to have to buy pitching. And that's the best way to do it, is to make your ballpark more competitive for your pitchers, right? So if they were to trade for a guy like that, if he ended up here and they gave up a mid to low level prospect, I'd be okay with it. I don't want to give up a name that we know. I'm not willing to give up a Kyle Stowers or a Jordan Westberg or somebody like that.
No, not Stowers. No, probably not. But I wouldn't throw it completely out.
Yeah,
Westberg, no. I wouldn't give up Westberg for him.
If you explain that to your fan base when Kyle Stowers is hitting 250 with 30 homers for the Cubs, and Albert Alzolay is in his third year with the Orioles, and his best season was a 4.42 ERA with 9 wins. Like you explain that to your fan base.
I think, unfortunately, though, that's going to be the reality. You almost have to make a trade like that at some point. I just think that's, if you really want to get starting pitching, it's going to come at a price. And I think Kyle Stowers is maybe a fair price for him. I do. I think that may be a little bit of an Orioles overpay. Maybe you get a low-level prospect back with, or maybe like a 17-year-old Dominican Summer League guy back for Alzolay, or with Alzolay, I should say. But I don't know. That doesn't seem like it's too far off to me.
And you also have to know the Cubs' willingness to move on.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't know.
This is just a name that
this is someone that
I
like. I think Alzolay is a pretty decent pitcher, and he's not someone who's going to break the bank as far as what you're trading back. And that's why I picked Alzolay out. And I think he's a guy who's young and controllable, which is obviously something teams look into big time. I mean, that's very important.
Yeah, you say use caution when you say young and controllable, because the fact that he's
26 is young.
He's 27.
Well, basically, yeah.
He's 27, right? The fact that he's 27 and still controllable worries me, because if he was good enough, I mean, some people are late bloomers. You know what I mean? Trey Mancini was 27 when he was really coming into his own.
Yep.
So I understand that. I would have to see what they gave up. And I would actually have to see – I've never seen the guy pitch. I'd have to see something where – because 9.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, that also doesn't stand out to me, because most pitchers can strike out 9 per 9 these days.
It's higher than I would say the average is. But, he's also a guy who's a great spin rate on his curveball, good spin rate on his fastball. Gives up a little too much hard hits for his own good, but and the Orioles can work with him on that. And
he sounds so much like Jorge Lopez to me.
No, he's way better than Jorge Lopez. Way better.
Again, I've never seen him pitch. Now maybe I'll watch this guy pitch and be like, wow, they may have something here. I've just never seen him pitch. You look at the numbers, you look at the age. To me, you see the age as a highlight. I see it as a low light.
He's got a 6-pitch mix too, which is something that I think is pretty nice. And he's a sinker baller and slider guy. So
he has 6 pitches. Can he throw them all for strikes?
Well, I mean, the curveball
what's his walk rate?
The curveball and the cutter he's had some issues with. I'd have to pull up his walk. Actually, it's 2.4 per 9.
Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah.
I'd be open to it depending on what the Orioles give up. This isn't going to be the year where they're going. I do think they're going to sign another starting pitcher or two.
I do.
I really do. Once this thing gets figured out, because I don't think that you can go into it with John Means, Jordan Lyles, and then like I just don't think that they can do that again. But we'll see. It's not. I agree with the premise of your idea, and maybe the player. I agree with you to a certain extent. I just feel like, but I'm also thinking of it like, when I think of the Orioles trading prospects for pitching, I'm thinking of the Orioles trading prospects for pitching that's going to get them over a certain hump that they're not to yet. So I guess maybe I have to be a little bit more open-minded to something that's a stepping stone.
I think
that's what you're looking at this
exactly. It's a starting piece. It's not your ace. It's not the guy you're going to go out that's going to change everything for this team, but it's a starting piece. I think Lyles is kind of a starting piece, but he's better than Lyles in my opinion, and he gives up a lot less home runs than Lyles, which is a big difference. But he's a guy that I think can just at least give you 2 or 3 good years, and at 27, maybe 27 through his 29 season, he could be okay. I think this is it would be a solid move. But again, it really depends on what you give up.
And I could be doing what other people did with Jordan Lyles, where there's a common misnomer with Jordan Lyles that he's a 5.15 pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that's what his stats say, but 2 out of every 3 times out there, he's giving you a good ball game. All the qualities. So the numbers, you throw in 8 bad outings and the numbers look the way they are, and you're ignoring 23 really good outings.
Mm-hmm.
So and maybe that's what I'm doing with Alzolay. I would have to look further into him. So I agree with the premise and maybe the player, and maybe I need to temper my expectations a little bit for trades.
Yeah, I think they'll probably start trading for starting pieces eventually, and then they'll get into the bigger name guys when they're really players in the market, especially when you look at the trade deadline, maybe 2023, 24. Those will be the times when you can start really going after the big names, especially 2024, I think, is a prime time for that, in that offseason and then going into that trade deadline.
Well, very, very good, Zach. Good sounding off segment.
Thank you.
It was a good one. Zach texted me last night. He's like, dude,
what is there to sound off on? Yeah.
What is there to sound off on? There's nothing going on, and we already sound off on a lot of stuff anyway, like the CBA and the Hall of Fame.
I was going to talk about Bonds, and then I knew you were going to talk about Bonds, and then but something I've been thinking about a lot lately is how the Orioles are going to acquire pitching, and I thought Alzolay would be a solid move. So,
Orioles banter, Buck Britton as the Tides manager, and I feel like Stan was misinterpreting what I was saying earlier today, in that I don't think that Buck Britton is being groomed to be the next Orioles manager.
No.
There are people that are putting those pieces together outwardly.
I don't think it's so intentional like everyone thinks it is.
Yeah,
it's not that.
They're just moving him up. He's moving up at the same time that the prospects he's been managing are moving up. And I think they like him. I think he's going to be part of a big league coaching staff maybe as soon as 2023.
Yeah.
I really do.
I agree.
I don't think that he's being groomed. There's no way that the Orioles brass is saying, we're grooming this guy to be our next manager, and they still have Brandon Hyde under contract.
Look, here's my problem with it. So I said it before, but people are just saying this because he's Zach Britton's brother. I really think that's the big thing here is that he's Zach Britton's brother, and that Zach Britton's a beloved guy here in Baltimore. But the bigger thing about it, too, is think about it this way. Why would the Orioles take a guy like Brandon Hyde, who had no major league experience in managing, and come in and have him manage for a few years, give him no quality product, and then fire him for another guy who's never managed at the major league level? That doesn't make any sense.
It's not going to be a firing.
Well, it would be a parting of ways, I guess is what you could call it.
Because when his contract runs up, they just don't renew it.
Sure, but I still look at that as you kind of fired him a little bit. I mean, you're moving. So I'll rephrase. Moving on. Why would you move on for a guy who also has no major league managing experience? It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly, and I'm so confused as to what the Orioles' plan is with Brandon Hyde, and that's the other thing where maybe I wasn't getting the question out correctly to Stan.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think I got what you were trying to say.
But it boggles my mind that you would make this guy a lame duck manager, and give him no talent to evaluate him with.
Right.
You can't just say, okay, well, we're giving you Adley Rutschman, go win 75 games. I mean, you can't just say that.
Right.
Like he has no defined future with this ball club after 2022.
Mm-hmm.
He has no pitching.
No.
And John Means a very good pitcher, but John Means gets hurt every year.
He's one guy, too.
And he's one guy.
One guy.
He has no starting pitching.
Yep.
He has 5 guys in this lineup that you can count on.
Mm-hmm.
5 guys maybe, and that's assuming that Rutschman is who we think he is, and assuming that Trey Mancini bounces back, and assuming that Austin Hayes can stay healthy. I look at this roster, and I look at this team, and it's like, why would you only give Brandon Hyde 1 year if you don't plan on giving him something that you can evaluate him on?
Well, let's think about it this way, too. Say the Orioles hired Buck Britton as their manager in 2019 instead of Brandon Hyde. Let's say Buck Britton just did everything Brandon Hyde just did for the past 3 years, and then comes out again with this 2022 extension and has to do with what Brandon Hyde has to do this year. And then the Orioles don't renew his contract, and they hire Brandon Hyde to take on a competitive team. You see how I'm saying? Like, you could switch these roles, and they'd be the exact same thing.
Not exactly, because Brandon Hyde was a minor league manager of the year, won a couple championships as a minor league manager, and he had already had big league roles.
That's fair. He was a bench coach for a long time, first base coach as well. So
he was more, and he actually managed a game or two at the big league level when guys got thrown out and whatnot. So he had proven himself more than Buck Britton.
I agree. I just don't really think.
But I get what you're saying.
The result from 2019 to 2021 wouldn't have been any different with Buck Britton as manager.
No,
I just don't think it would have been.
And the Orioles know that.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So why does it make sense to get rid of Brandon Hyde at this point?
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. But it also doesn't make sense to make him a lame duck manager.
Yeah.
That makes no sense unless you plan. And that's what I was trying. That's the point that I was trying to get across the stand.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense unless your plan is to give him talent where you can see real improvement on the field. Nobody thinks this team's winning 90 games this year. Nobody thinks this team's winning 80 games this year.
Nobody even thinks they're winning 70, if we're being honest.
Most people don't. But are the Orioles going to give him enough of a roster that with good managing and good decisions that he can get this team to 70, 75 wins this year?
No.
And if that's not the case, then why did you make him a lame duck manager? How can you evaluate this guy if you don't give him the talent to work with?
Exactly. There's nothing to evaluate him on. And then you can throw another manager out there, and you give him a bunch of talent, and he succeeds, and then you say, oh, well, letting go of Brandon Hyde and moving on to this guy was the right decision, when Brandon Hyde in reality might have been able to do the same thing with the same talent if you just had given him that talent the previous year. So you're right. There's nothing to evaluate him on. I don't know what their thought process is behind Brandon Hyde and where his future stands. I still don't believe that Brandon Hyde will manage the next World Series team for the Orioles. I just don't see that happening.
Maybe that'll be Zach Goodman.
Maybe. Maybe. But I don't see it being Brandon Hyde at this point.
Well, and that's if the Orioles ever get there. Again, we hope. We don't know. What's going on over there?
Nothing.
Another weird comment?
No. We'll discuss it later.
During the break, okay.
Yeah.
Another guy who's interested in getting into coaching here, so it would seem, is Adam Jones. And, guys, I know that you love Adam Jones.
It's like hiring Ed Reed as defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Ed Reed has coached in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's been a secondary coach in the NFL. I love Adam Jones. We all do. I think Adam Jones borderline should have his number retired for everything that he's meant to this franchise.
Yeah.
But I look at Adam Jones and, take the sentiment away. Mm-hmm. He has no coaching experience.
Exactly. What are you hiring him on the basis of?
What are you going to hire him as?
Yeah.
And is he going to be willing to take a low A coaching job and be part of a minor league shuttle, like literally riding minor league buses to be a coach?
I doubt it.
You would hope that if he wants to get into coaching. Now, some guys don't do that. There have been plenty of guys who got to the major leagues very quickly as a manager after their playing career ended. I would need to see something from him that shows that he has the ability to be a quality coach. And maybe it's 1 year of being a third base coach at AAA.
Yeah.
And he's so respected by his teammates and or by his players, and he commands that clubhouse, and they really listen to what he has to say. Okay, but what kind of let's forget that Adam Jones is your favorite player.
Yeah.
And that he was the heart and soul of the Orioles for 10 years. What has he done to earn a coaching role?
Right. And he didn't.
And if he wants one, he can get one.
He didn't necessarily play a position either that requires the kind of leadership that catcher does, or even. I mean, my point is that Adam Jones has no resume of coaching or anything to go off of. You're hiring him on the basis of that he's Adam Jones. And I think Orioles fans, I've noticed this a lot, are getting really caught up in sentiment lately, and I don't blame them because there isn't a lot great going on at the moment within the major league team. So I don't blame them exactly, but. A better guy for that role, if you really want to talk about Orioles players that maybe should be future coaches, managers, is Matt Wieters, a guy who is a good leader and ran the team and is a guy who's a catcher and really knows how to lead and be the captain of the field. That's a more plausible thing than I think Adam Jones would be, but really all of them are kind of random names you're just picking out because you're sentimental about them. I think that's more of what it is than anything.
This isn't. We're not attacking Adam Jones. Zach and I love Adam Jones as much as the next person.
Oh, I love
it.
it.
You have to be able to separate your sentimentality towards him and his ability to do what he wants to do. And I'm not saying he can't coach, but he's going to have to be willing to take a coaching job in the low levels of the minor leagues and work his way up. And is Adam Jones willing to do that?
I mean, I would guess no.
Yeah, look at the players who have been stars in this league.
Mm-hmm.
Off the top of my head, the only managers I can think of who have been stars in this league are Joe Torre and Lou Piniella. Neither one.
I would argue Don Mattingly as well.
Yeah, sneeze.
I would argue Don Mattingly as well. But
Don Mattingly, but it took Don Mattingly a long time to get there.
It did, and that's the thing. It's going to take anybody really a long time to get there because you just don't. You can play as long as you want and meet as many people and do all the great things in baseball, but being a manager and being a player are two very different things. And it's just you've got to figure out, I guess, what you are as a manager before you come up and just manage the Major League Baseball team immediately. You've got to start out low, and you've got to prove yourself just like anybody else would. So I think, and I love Adam Jones as much as anybody. He's a great player. But
he was a star in this league.
He would have to prove himself as a
Is he willing to go back and pay his dues again?
Right. He's got to prove himself as a coach. And so far, we have nothing to go off of that he's done that.
Yeah. He was still playing as of last year.
Right. I believe he's not under contract anymore, but I'm not entirely up on that situation.
Yeah.
But
I imagine that he's not going to play again.
I think he's done.
I imagine that he's going to. Were you the one who said he should come back and play for the Orioles this year?
I never said that.
Somebody said that he should come back and be a
part-time
part-time
it wasn't
player.
me.
And there was somebody who I respect their opinion on baseball, so when they said that, I was like, are you out of your freaking mind?
Right.
But anyway,
No,
I digress.
That was definitely not me, I can promise you.
Look, that commenter on the feed who didn't want us talking about Hall of Fame because it was boring. Sorry, man.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to talk about it.
We're talking about the Hall of Fame. David Ortiz in on the first ballot. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Sammy Sosa all fall off the ballot after their 10th year and final year of eligibility.
Sammy Sosa.
He
really never should have been on the ballot in the first place.
He hit over 600 home runs.
Yeah, but he didn't do anything before, the steroid era.
That's not true either.
We've had this discussion on the show before, so I won't put people through it again. I am not a Sammy Sosa fan at all.
Sammy Sosa was a caricature, right? He was a caricature.
Yeah.
And then he came to Baltimore and he was terrible, and he wasn't. Didn't have that glowing personality because he was terrible, and he knew he was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't. I remember him hitting a fly in Canyon Yards with its dimensions being what they were before they moved this left field wall back. He hit a fly ball where he did a Sammy Sosa home run hop, and it got caught at the edge of the warning track.
Yep.
And that's what Sammy Sosa became in Baltimore. I think Sammy Sosa was a poster boy for steroids, and he knew it. That's why he claimed he didn't speak English in the congressional hearings. So I look at Sammy Sosa and I'm like, whatever. That guy fell off the ballot. I don't know that anybody will ever put him in.
No. I think he only got like 13% or something really low.
Because everybody knows that.
Yeah.
That
well, that's what I'm saying. That's my point.
Yeah, but he was a 30-40 homer guy before 98.
Yes, he was.
He was. And he was actually a speedster at the beginning of his career.
Yeah, he stole 234 or something like that.
He was a 30-40 stolen base guy before he became what he became with the Cubs.
Yeah.
But Barry Bonds, 7-time MVP, four of which was it 3 or 4 that he won before 2000? I think he won 4 MVP. He won 4 MVPs before 2000. Yeah. All-time leader in walks. All-time leader in intentional walks. Barry Bonds led the league in walks 6 times in 7 years prior to 2000.
Also stole 514 bases.
Right. Barry Bonds led the league in intentional walks 8 times from
688.
8 years in a row from 7 years in a row from 1992 to 1998. Barry Bonds led the majors in intentional walks every year.
Yeah.
So people that are saying, "Oh, well, those walks only," somebody tried to make the argument that the walks only came because of the steroids. No, Barry Bonds was the most prolific on-base guy in baseball his entire career before he allegedly started taking steroids in 2000. We say allegedly because nothing's been proven, but we know it. But we know, right? Although somebody said to me the other day, how do you know? It was John Miller. He's like, you say you know, but do you have evidence? How do you know?
Was he one of the ones highlighted in Canseco's book in 1995? Or not? It may have been later than that. But he wrote that.
Canseco's book came out well after.
Yeah,
that.
you're right. You're right. I was thinking.
I think Canseco was just.
It was
talking
called
about guys.
Juiced.
Yeah, I own the book.
Yeah.
I believe I can't remember off the top of my head, but I believe he only talked about guys that he played with.
Yeah, he named
and injected himself.
He named like 10 or so guys. And I
he
don't
named
think
Palmeiro. He named McGuire.
I don't think Bonds was part of that.
Yeah, because if you look at Barry Bonds, there is evidence that he didn't use steroids prior to 2000.
Right.
And then it was really the McGuire-Sosa thing where Barry Bonds knew he was 10 times the player that each one of those guys were, and they weren't talking about him. He was a Hall of Fame player with 10 years left in his career, and nobody was talking about him because of Sosa and McGuire. So he said, I'll get you guys talking about me.
Yeah.
I'll go out there and hit 73 freaking home runs by doing the same thing they were doing.
Do you want to know the most crazy Barry Bonds stat to me? 12 seasons in a row with an 1,000-plus OPS.
Mm-hmm.
That's just ridiculous. And then he had 1 year where he hit 999 and then went back to 1,000 the next year. And by the way, in that last year, 2007, his retirement year, he had an 1,045 OPS.
Yeah, he was a monster.
I mean,
Barry Bonds only retired because his body started giving out on him.
Right.
He was still the best player.
He was 42 years old at that point.
Barry Bonds in 2004 had 373 at bats. And
How do you know that?
And because we just talked about
right
it.
on. Okay.
And he reached base 376 times. He reached base more than he had official at bats in a season. That is the craziest stat in the history of baseball.
And his on base percentage
was like 606.
609. And I mean, that's just astronomical. You look at guys today.
Astronomical.
It is. And you look at guys today and you look for on base percentages over 400. You go, that's really good.
Yeah.
And then you look at this guy with 609 in 2004, and you're like,
I saw Bobby Abreu's career on base percentage was 395, and I was like, wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
Barry Bonds had an on base percentage of 609 in 2004.
And 444 career.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, he is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the 5 greatest players that have ever stepped foot on the baseball field.
2 greatest players. Or 3. 2 or 3. I can't decide. He's either 2 or 3 for me.
I mean, he is. David Ortiz is a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
He hit over 500 home runs. He did test positive for steroids. They said that some players have false positive, but they never said who. Right. So you can make all the assumptions you want that maybe he was one of those guys that had a false positive. Yeah. And he's been adamant throughout his entire career that he never used steroids. Well, no duh. Who wouldn't be adamant that they didn't use steroids if it could impact them getting into the Hall of Fame? Alex Rodriguez went to great lengths, threatening people's lives and livelihoods to keep his name out of steroid speculation, and then ended up serving a year suspension because of it. Who wouldn't deny using steroids if it could impact you like that, right? I think we all know Ortiz used steroids. I think we all know Bonds and Clemens used steroids. Clemens' arm was done after Boston, and then he puts up 10 years where he was one of the best pitchers in the game. But this was the steroid era. Everybody else was using steroids too, and these were the best players of that bunch. Barry Bonds should have been a unanimous Hall of Fame guy.
I'm with you.
He should have been unanimously voted into the Hall of Fame. Somebody put out the BBWAA, Baseball Writers Association of America, stands for Barry Bonds was an asshole. And that's why he's not in.
Yeah.
If Barry Bonds was a media darling, he would have been in on the first ballot. Maybe the second. Maybe they would have punished him for a year. But the fact that Barry Bonds is off the Hall of Fame ballot now is a travesty.
I agree.
It's an absolute travesty.
Look, the way I look at it as, and I said this before, but you look at the Hall of Fame, and the Hall of Fame, the point of the Hall of Fame is to recognize the greatest players in baseball history, no matter what. And Barry Bonds, to me, is a top 3 baseball player in the history of the game. There is almost no doubt that most, probably for the rest of the existence of Major League Baseball, no one will ever do what Barry Bonds did.
It's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen.
Juan Soto might.
I don't know if he'll ever hit 73 home runs. in a single season.
Nobody's ever going to do that.
Or
again.
hit 762 in his career.
Nobody will be given the opportunity to hit 73 home runs.
I'm convinced that Juan Soto will go down as a top 10 baseball player of all time. I think he's more going to fall in the realm of like a Ted Williams, though, than a Barry Bonds, and Ted Williams is one of the greatest of all time, but doesn't hit as many home runs. Anyway, point being is Barry Bonds is top 3 of all time, and you have to recognize him as a Hall of Fame as that, right? He's not anything different. He is one of, if not the greatest, baseball player of all time, and you have to recognize him for his accomplishments no matter what. And look, a lot of people were doing steroids in that era, and I'm not going to say whether he did or not.
Brian Roberts did steroids.
I'm not going to say whether he did or not, but look.
No. He tested positive.
No, I know. I'm talking about Bonds, though.
Oh,
but
okay.
You're right. For Roberts, yes. But Bonds is just a guy that you just can't ignore the accomplishments and the I guess the contributions to the game. And really, he didn't. I don't want to say he didn't hurt anyone, but he didn't hurt anyone with what he did. He was just he wasn't the nicest guy in the world, I don't think, but he was a guy who never was really, I'm not sure what the right word to use is, but you get what I'm trying to say. People had a respect for Bonds that I don't think they had for some other players in the game at the time.
We had
like Alex Rodriguez.
We had John Miller on Glenn Clark Radio this past week, and I love John Miller. I was jealous because that meant we couldn't get him for this show this week. And he said that he had a personal relationship with Barry Bonds, and Barry Bonds is one of the nicest guys he knows.
I don't doubt it.
And he said that the reverence with which Barry Bonds treats Willie Mays, and like he'll go get Willie Mays food and take care of him and this, that, and the other. And he doesn't have tolerance for the BS, right? But if he knows you, he's one of the nicest guys in the world if he knows you. If he doesn't know you, he doesn't have time for you. But if he knows you, he'll treat you like family, is what John Miller said. So... And whatever. I don't care. John Miller also said Eddie Murray is one of the nicest guys he's ever met in the game of baseball. In the game of baseball, and the media hated him because he didn't want to talk to the media. And it's a shame that these baseball writers have that power to keep somebody out of the Hall of Fame because, he wasn't nice to me. Or, he wouldn't give me an interview for an article I wanted to write. Like it's crap. Yeah. And if Barry Bonds, one guy even wrote an article, he said, if Barry Bonds was a nice guy, I'd have him in the Hall of Fame. But there is a character clause. There's a character clause in Ty Cobb, who killed a man, is in the Hall of Fame. And
I actually didn't know that.
And was a notorious racist.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And Ty Cobb, and he would intentionally sharpen his cleats so he could spike people sliding into bases.
Not a good guy.
And he's in the Hall of Fame. But Barry Bonds isn't because he wouldn't give you an interview.
And Barry Bonds, I was alive during a little bit of his career, but obviously not the whole thing. But I don't remember ever people absolutely hating the guy outside of what the baseball writers absolutely hating the guy.
I do.
People were, when he hit 73 home runs, there was just this shock and awe about the guy and what he did. I mean,
even then, everybody knew why.
I remember people hating Alex Rodriguez for what he did and the guy he was, but I don't know. Barry Bonds, I just feel like people had this respect for the legendary numbers he was putting up.
I remember watching Barry Bonds, and I think it was up in Philly in the 96 home run derby. And I remember hearing stories about how he was a jerk back then. And certain things I won't say on the air because I remember hearing things, all sorts of different things that nobody else can corroborate.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say something if nobody else can corroborate it, right? But I heard some bad things about Barry Bonds.
Fair.
Never killed anybody. Never beat the hell out of anybody. Nothing like that. Just didn't want to talk to the media at the end of the day.
And that's what I'm trying to say.
And that's why he's not in the Hall of Fame. And it's a shame because the today's game era committee will meet again next winter, and they could put him in. And I think they might. I think they might.
I hope they do.
Barry Bonds 100%. If David Ortiz, and I said this earlier in the show, Barry Bonds was the epitome of a 5-tool player.
Yep.
If David Ortiz, who was a 1-tool player, and that tool still wasn't as good as Barry Bonds, is in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, Barry Bonds should have been in unanimously. And Roger Clemens, most Cy Youngs of all time, 7. Barry Bonds, most MVPs of all time, 7. Most walks of all time, highest on-base percentage. And no, actually, he doesn't have the highest on-base percentage, but the highest number of walks, highest number of intentional walks, and, of course, the most home runs in baseball history. Pete Rose, the most hits in baseball history. None in the Hall of Fame.
Is it wild to you that Willie Mays had 10 more All-Star appearances than Barry Bonds? Isn't that wild? He had 24 All-Stars.
Well, there were years where they had 2 All-Star games.
Oh, you're right. That's actually true.
Yeah,
but still, it goes down in the books.
Because Brooks Robinson had
those
more
years, yeah.
All-Star appearances than he had seasons played.
Yeah.
Because he made the All-Star game twice in years.
You're right on that. But Willie Mays was an All-Star every year from 1954 to 1972, and then again in 1973. So he was 156 WAR, which just trails Barry Bonds by a few. So
he has 156 WAR, and he trails Barry Bonds.
Right, Barry Bonds 162. So
think about that, and that's still not the most of all time. That's still not the highest WAR.
Is
of all
Ruth
time.
the highest of all time?
I believe he is.
I'm gonna check that out. I think you're right. I think it's like 170 something.
Yeah.
It is. 183. Wow.
183. Yeah.
I don't even know how they calculated that. I'm just I'm curious about how
you look at his inflated numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to everybody else in the league. So, like, you wins above replacement. At the time, a replacement level player might be a 10, 15 homer guy.
Yeah.
And Ruth is hitting 50 to 60 home runs every year. So your WAR is calculated differently, whereas when Bonds played, he might hit 45 home runs, and Griffey's out there hitting 56.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But Bonds is stealing more bases and whatnot, and getting on base at a higher clip.
It actually surprises me that Babe Ruth has a higher on-base percentage all time than Barry Bonds did by 30 points, which is actually kind of surprising to me.
Well, because, again, he
Yeah,
was
he
was the one guy that was going to beat you,
I
so you couldn't let him beat you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what Barry Bonds was. Barry Bonds was a modern-day Babe Ruth. You know, I don't doubt that Barry Bonds was a better baseball player than Babe Ruth. I don't doubt that.
No, he was.
Babe Ruth was very good.
Yeah.
And Babe Ruth could do a lot of different things. I think one year Babe Ruth hit like 17 triples.
Yeah.
So it was something crazy. Ruth could do a lot of different things. He was on a Hall of Fame track as a pitcher before he decided to stick to strictly hitting. Boy, we are running late on this show. We got to get a third break here.
We do.
So we're gonna catch another break. When we come back, we're gonna close things out. A little bit of trivia for Zach, and I got a whopper for him this time.
Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. This is your chance to win big right in your own backyard. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all of the action from the best seat in the house. Make every moment more at the all-new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The latest issue of Press Box is available now, and it's our very special annual Best of issue. On the cover, we celebrate Justin Tucker as our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, honoring his historic on-field achievements, but also the unprecedented relationship he shared with Baltimore. Inside, we recognize the top people, performances, and moments of 2021, including Cedric Mullins' incredible season and the dominance of local Paralympic athletes. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farms stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
The biggest pro wrestling stars today and all time all have one thing in common. You've heard them on Jobbing Out.
Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks.
Thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
The great Kurt Angle.
Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Matt Riddle.
Yeah, man. Thanks, man.
The champ, Drew McIntyre.
Oh, thank you for having me.
The great Ron Simmons.
Damn.
Keith Lee.
Appreciate you guys having me, man.
Bill Goldberg.
My pleasure.
Charlotte.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mick Foley is with us.
This is the greatest name for a wrestling show I've ever heard.
MJF.
I'm glad you're happy I'm on this show because I'm freaking miserable.
Le
champion.
Chris Jericho.
Le champion.
AJ, Aaron, Brandon, and Glenn are talking pro wrestling every week on Jobbing Out. Find it at PressBoxOnline.com/radio, iTunes, and SoundCloud.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a wide range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Toyota to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
All right, welcome back to the Bat Around. Been a really good show today. Special
late
thanks.
show.
Yeah, it's always a late show.
That's
This-
fine.
It's not too late.
Nah, it's all right.
Special thanks to Stan the Fan Charles for his weekly segment. Stan was in a great mood today, and I love when Stan's in a great mood. We're going to talk to him again next week. Kyle Glaser was the guy who I had in mind for the show when we were closing things out last week. He's always so accommodating.
Yeah,
so
right,
really
right.
great to have him on the show and talk about their top 100 prospects list. And guys, the Orioles have some guys that don't crack their top 10. It would be top 5 guys in other
easy.
in other teams' organizations. The Orioles system is loaded. They got to get that pitching figured out.
Yep.
Speaking of pitching, got a little trivia here for you, Zach.
I'll close my computer to make everything fair. I'm not cheating on this one.
Jim Palmer won 20 games in a season an astounding 8 times in his career.
Okay.
In fact, since his debut in 1965, not one pitcher in the game has amassed as many 20-win seasons as Palmer.
Okay.
9 pitchers in history have more 20-win seasons than Palmer. I won't make you name them all because 5 of them happened in the 1800s.
Okay.
Including Cy Young, who had 9 of his record 15 20-win seasons in the 1800s.
Okay.
So who are the 4 pitchers since 1900 with more 20-win seasons than Jim Palmer? And the reason I ask you this is because these are all names that you know.
Okay.
There's 4 of them. These are all names that you know. You might not be able to get them, but you know them.
How many guesses do you think I get here?
We'll give you 10 guesses.
I honestly, this is not something I know a lot about. I'll be honest with you, so this could be very tough.
Like me with ballparks last week.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Let me tell you a story about a bridge and then quiz you on it.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna start off with Greg Maddux. I'll give that one a shot.
No.
Okay.
He has a record for most consecutive 15-win seasons.
I see by the time he pitched, I figured that 20-game winners weren't
and
nearly as common.
You also have to remember that I said nobody has had more 20-win seasons than Palmer, who had 8 since he came in the league in 1965.
Oh, so it's got to be pre. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
it's since 1900, but nobody's had more than has had as many as 8 since Palmer.
We're talking more pre-60s here.
We're talking well before then.
Oh, jeez.
But these are all names that you know.
So Greg Maddux is pretty far off from
Greg
that.
Maddux wasn't.
Yeah.
Greg Maddux's parents
Probably weren't even alive.
in their
Yeah.
parents' eyes.
Wow, I misunderstood the question. But, whew, this is absolutely Lefty Grove.
No.
No. Wow.
That's one guess.
That's
2. That's 2.
Yeah. Walter Johnson.
Walter Johnson comes in at 3rd with 12. Okay. That's 3 guesses.
Oh, this is really, really difficult. Walter, he might be the only one I get, if we're being honest here. Wow, 20-game winners pre-1965.
That had 9 or more.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think of the greatest pitchers of all time from that era. I mean, Cy Young definitely would have been one of my guesses, but that
right.
Know,
he won. But if I included Cy Young because he won 9 of his 15 in the 1800s, I would have had to include all the other guys from the 1800s, and you never would have gotten them.
I never would have gotten them. No. Babe Ruth had a few 20-game winning seasons, but it's not him. He only had like 2 or 3. So I don't even know if it was that, but he was not it.
I don't think he ever had a 20-game winning season.
I believe he did, or at least 19 games or something like that. He was really close.
I think it was
a lot of guys.
I think you're thinking of his consecutive scoreless inning streak, which was like 19 innings.
He might have won like 19 games at some point. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, wow, this is very difficult. You might have to start giving me some hints here because
there's no hint that I can give.
This is very tough. Pre-1965, my baseball knowledge does not really go back that far.
These are names that you know.
I'm sure they are.
I'm
sure they are.
Names.
I'm sure they are, but I don't know what year.
You're right. Babe Ruth won 23 games in 1916 and 24 in 1917.
Yeah. I don't even know if this is the right era. I'm just going to take a wild guess here. Bob Gibson?
No.
Was he after Jim Palmer? Okay.
He was around the same time as Jim
I was thinking he was more 60s, yeah. Pre-1965. Walter Johnson. Already guessed Lefty Grove. That wasn't correct. Wow, this is... You're right. This is hard. There's no hint you can give me, even the team?
I don't know the teams.
Oh, they're like not. They don't exist anymore.
The teams.
That doesn't help.
I'm sure the teams exist. I don't
Just
think. I don't think you'd know the teams either.
Wow. I'm drawing a blank. I'm drawing a complete blank. I know these guys too. Like I know who they are.
You want to just give up?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
All right, number 1, Christy Mathewson.
Oh,
with 13.
That's annoying.
Tied for number 1, Warren Spahn with 13.
Man. Yeah.
And third with 9, Grover Cleveland Alexander.
That one I probably never would have gotten. I know Grover Cleveland Alexander, but he's not really. He doesn't really have a space in my head. If that makes sense. I know who he is. Warren Spahn 100% should have gotten. Christy Mathewson, that would have been a little bit tougher. Warren Spahn, though, I should have gotten.
But you know all the you've heard these names, right?
Warren Spahn had the I can picture his delivery in my head because it's really that long, over the top, crazy delivery with a super high leg kick. I can picture that
like
in my
a Walter
head.
Johnson,
right? Yeah.
Who you also guessed?
Who I also guessed. Yeah.
All right.
That was tough.
So that was intentionally hard.
Well,
after your ballpark's question,
I'm happy to get one of 4. To be honest with you,
from last week. So I have another trivia question for you.
Okay.
7 players in Major League. This one should be easy.
My dad just texted me Warren Spahn.
Did he?
I didn't look at my phone while we were doing that. Anyway.
7 players in Major League history tallied 8 or more 200-hit seasons. Who were they, and which 2 players had the most?
How many players again?
7.
So I have to guess all 7.
As many as you can.
200 hit or more seasons.
There's 2 guys that you're never going to get.
Ichiro is definitely one of them.
Ichiro?
Yes. He did it multiple times.
Tied for 10. Tied for first with 10.
Yeah. This is also very difficult, honestly. Edgar Martinez?
Nope.
Griffey?
Nope.
Did Lofton ever do it?
No. Boy, man, you were not even close. I thought this was
going
to be...
Are these more modern, older? How about DiMaggio?
No.
No?
Most of them are older, but Ichiro was a modern one. There's another guy who's a modern one.
I mean, maybe Bonds did it.
No.
How do you hit 73 home runs in a season, not hit 200 hits in that year?
Because they walk you all the time.
Power
hitters don't do that.
Yeah.
Power hitters don't get 200 hit seasons.
Yeah.
So you immediately
Rod Carew?
No. Immediately you can basically I think there's one guy who's considered a power hitter on this list.
Okay.
And he's from way back, way back.
So that's also Ted Williams. Did he do it?
Nope.
Really?
He had 4 years in his career that were lost because of the war.
Well, that's true. 200 hit seasons.
Wow, I really expected you to be.
This one's harder.
You're leaving one out that's so freaking obvious. I can't believe you're not getting it.
Jeter didn't do it, did he?
Jeter
did he?
He's not the guy I was talking about, but he is tied for. He is tied with for. I don't know what place it would have been. 1, 2, 3. So first, third. He's tied for 4th with 8.
Okay. Babe Ruth.
Again, you're naming power hitters. And they didn't play as many games back
I
then.
just figured Babe Ruth at some point would have had 200 hits. I mean, and for multiple times. I mean, he's a guy who just he did everything. This is going to be an interesting one. I
cannot believe you haven't named this guy yet.
Really? Well, I mean, is he more modern? Is he?
He played before your lifetime.
Okay.
But he is incredibly famous in baseball.
Pete Rose. Oh, it's definitely Pete Rose.
Pete Rose.
Yeah, okay.
The all-time hits leader. He tied Ichiro with 10.
Yeah.
Now the other guys.
Hold up. Richie Ashburn.
No.
Okay. Richie Ashburn's one of the better contact hitters of all time. I had to guess him.
There's a guy I can't believe you didn't guess. He's not on the list, but I can't believe you didn't guess him.
It's just hard to think. Thinking of these things on the spot is really. It's actually way more hard than you think it is.
No, trust me. We talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago. I'm really bad at instant recall.
Yeah. Man, 200 hits for that many times.
Babe Ruth did have 3 200 hit seasons. And he had one
Only
season
3,
and he had one season where he had 199. But again,
too bad.
They only played 154 games.
I can't believe Ted Williams never did that many times. That's actually shocking to me. Willie Mays, too much of a power hitter. He probably didn't do it. He just got.
Ted Williams never had 200 hits in the season.
That's wild. That's wild.
Because
can't believe that.
He walked 147. He walked over 140 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times.
What about Mattingly?
No.
Never did it? No.
Mattingly.
Oh, man.
Like what? I made I made a joke with Laura a couple of years ago. I was like, what if everybody's been pronouncing Don Mattingly's name wrong his entire life, and it's actually Mattingly?
Joe Morgan.
No.
What? Really? Wow. Barry Larkin, probably not. No. I'm just thinking of the greats that I know were a little more contact hitter, which Barry Larkin was, but probably not 200 hits that many times.
We are running out of time. I'm going to give you three.
Fair enough.
I'm going to give you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 4 guys. I'm going to give you 5 guesses.
Okay.
But let's make this a little bit more rapid fire.
Modern or far back or
since 1900.
All right, let's just I'm gonna wave the white flag here. I'm just gonna throw in the towel. I don't want to take too long here.
Ty Cobb with 9.
Yeah. Well.
Lou Gehrig with 8.
Yeah.
He's a powerhouse.
I even guessed DiMaggio.
And then Paul Warner and Wee Willie Keeler.
Never would have gotten those two guys.
Yeah, I know. Those are the 2 guys who I knew you wouldn't get. Surprisingly,
I don't even know who Keeler is.
You never said Tony Gwynn.
Yeah.
And I think Tony Gwynn had 7.
And he hit almost well over 300 each year, so it makes sense.
His
that he
career
would have
batting
been.
average is like 325.
Yeah.
A guy who you wouldn't think, Michael Young.
Really?
Had
From
6.
Texas?
He had 6 200 hit seasons.
Wow.
I was shocked. Michael Young.
That never would have crossed my mind. Lou Gehrig should have gotten that 100%.
I really firmly believed that that was going to be an easier one.
No, I mean naming 7 is hard. If it had been like 2 or 3, then I probably would have gotten it. But I can't believe I didn't guess Pete Rose first. That's the biggest travesty here.
Yeah. And the fact that Tony Gwynn never even popped into your head kind of blew my mind.
No, I wasn't really thinking 90s ish. I was thinking more like 1950s, 60s. So I don't know. And then I still didn't get Lou Gehrig.
All right,
so.
anyway, this is fun, but let's start making these trivia questions a little bit easier.
Okay, we'll get easier
moving forward. Just because I think it's fun for because you also want our listeners to be able to have even though we don't have an interactive way for them to give us guesses, they want to be able to get the questions right, and we want to be able to get them right too. So let's start making these. They don't have to be like who played shortstop for the Orioles from 1982 to 2000 to 1997. Not something like that, but like let's make them a little bit easier moving forward.
Fair enough. My dad actually was sending me some guesses during this. So he guessed Pete Rose and Ty Cobb, but he also sent Hornsby and Stan Musial. So Musial is another one I was thinking about guessing, but
yeah. I mean, that's a lot of 200 hit seasons. I mean, Ichiro did it his first 10 years.
I can remember Ichiro doing it because that was in my lifetime, and
he
that's
did
just
it consecutively, like ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's a guy who should be a unanimous Hall of Famer. I can't imagine that he wouldn't be.
Ichiro was really one of the greatest of all time. People don't talk about it enough, but he
really
is
one of the greatest players in the history of baseball. The 5-tool player. He was a 5-tool player.
Yep.
He didn't have the power, but Ichiro, because he didn't want to, Ichiro could have hit 40 home runs a year and lost 40 points on batting average to do it.
People say that when they played with him, that he would hit the farthest home runs in batting practice of anyone. Anyone. He had massive power, but he just never showed it off.
Yeah, Ichiro could hit home runs if he needed to. So.
Right, exactly.
Real quick before we go, I know the Ravens season. Oh, you gotta.
I got a live read to do. Yes.
Yeah, let's do that real quick.
So, PressBox's Glenn Clark Radio is the definitive place to find the best daily discussion of Baltimore sports. Watch the show every day from 10 to noon, live on YouTube at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline, or on Facebook Live at facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio, with podcasts available on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. You never know who might pop up on GCR. This week, the guys caught up with Anthony Levine, senior, before and after he announced his retirement, plus Bradley Bozeman, Jalen Smith, and the great John Miller. Find those interviews and more in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature right now at PressBoxOnline.com.
I am like at a point where I'm kind of done with the local sports fans.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not that like I hate them. I don't hate them. I don't think anybody's stupid or anything like that. I'm just exhausted because people are talking about the Ravens are going to trade Lamar Jackson, and they're like what? No, they're not. I'm going to need you to say something here.
So look, I read the article yesterday. There's some rumors going around that the Ravens have kind of soured on his off-the-field actions, is what I've heard. That was in the article written by Russell Street Report, I believe it was. I don't doubt that Lamar Jackson has done some things that are a little bit maybe we don't know about, because it did seem like the ankle injury was they didn't want to talk about him during that. It took a little bit longer for him to come back, and now he's sitting out of the Pro Bowl too because he still has that injury. So I don't know what's going on with all that. Maybe there's some stuff that we don't know, and that these rumors are finally starting to surface. The Ravens aren't trading Lamar Jackson.
No,
they're just not. There's nothing to talk about there. They're not trading Lamar Jackson.
Franchise-defining quarterback. You don't just trade that guy.
No, and not only that. I mean, do you really think they're going to replace him with what? Tyler Huntley, who he showed really. I mean, obviously he's going to develop more, but he showed down the stretch he couldn't win them games.
There's not a quarterback that you're going to go draft this year, right? Unless you're trading him to the Packers for Aaron Rodgers, and then you're drafting a guy in 2 years.
Yeah,
you can't get me on board with this.
Right.
Like how could I be?
There is no way. There's just no way. That's the way it's anybody talking about the Ravens trading Lamar Jackson, you just got to consider all of the reasons as why they would do that, and really none of them make sense.
And the off-the-field antics, if he was doing anything so detrimental to the franchise off the field, we would have heard about it.
Yeah, I don't think that stuff would stay
maybe it's the fact that he keeps endorsing Antonio Brown, and I'm sure they've had multiple conversations
I bet
with
they don't
him.
love that. Yeah.
You know, I bet they've had multiple conversations with him saying, we are not signing this dude. We can't put that in our locker room.
Right.
And he's like, nah, he'd be good. Tom Brady said he'd be good.
Yeah.
Well,
he also took off his shirt and did jumping jacks in the end zone in New York. So
yeah.
I'm not sure.
At least it was 61 degrees that day. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Tom Brady what Tom Brady says really matters when you're taking off your shirt and doing jumping jacks during the middle of a game. But I believe there's probably some stuff that maybe hasn't been exposed, but I don't know what that is, and I'm not going to speculate on what that is.
But
it doesn't matter.
Be anything that's world.
No,
no, earth-shattering.
And so Barstool Banks, I'm sure you know who Barstool Banks is. He's a very reliable source who works at Barstool and blogs, and he came up with an article last week that said there was some stuff that hadn't surfaced, and he didn't know if it was going to surface this offseason. And then this report comes out this week that there are some things that maybe we didn't know about Lamar and what he's doing in the, I guess, off the field. And that's just, those two are kind of combined, those two articles, and they're kind of referencing each other. So I don't really know exactly what it is. Again, I'm not going to speculate on what it is, but the Ravens aren't trading Lamar Jackson.
I can't imagine them doing it.
It's ridiculous to even think that.
Yep. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for indulging us. Thanks to Stan the Fan Charles and to Kyle Glaser of Baseball America. Thanks to Zach Goodman. You can follow on, what's your Twitter handle?
It is at ZGoodman20.
You used to be at Orioles fan, like 87, 65, 38.
It was. And then I was like, well, that doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, so go follow him at ZGoodman20. At ZGoodman20. You can follow me at Paul Valley III. We'll have another great show for you next week. Until then, as always, see ya.